Hello, 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 and welcome to Survivor NSFW Rewind, Professor Tim Watch's Australian Outback. I am your host, Karen Eisenberg, and we are very, very excited for this episode in particular. Before I bring in my guests, I do want to let you know that I am modeling the Big Brother Rewind t-shirt. Because I was on a show episode for this about 12 hours ago, which is why I can't talk today. I am tired as fuck. But anyway, I am here. I'm excited that you are here. You can find this t-shirt and many others at johnnyfairplay.com. And remember, with every purchase, you get a call from the great Johnny Fairplay. It's Jonny, no H. So today we are joined, as always, by my co-host, Professor Tim Wilson. Tim, what's going on with you?
Well, I actually, at this particular moment, I am flabbergasted and incredibly impressed by your vibrant T-shirt. I think I want one. It's like being in the presence of the Dalai Lama. It's sort of saffron and glowing.
Yeah, I love this color that they picked.
I have literally just this minute said goodbye to the plumber because I've had a very, very difficult boiler situation. It's been leaking onto my computers. And so water and computers, they don't go together.
Yeah, it's not great.
So there's been that, and then I've also had a major cat crisis. And my cat Bay, who was on the circle with me, has had really quite a. He's very poorly. He almost had a heart attack last week, and so I spent a lot of time in the vets. And now he's had liquid removed from his chest, and he's got further examinations to go. But I'm afraid the prognosis doesn't sound very good. I'm a bit distressed about it because he was very much a star of the show.
Of course, I mean and they're part of your family. I mean, I've had.
He's also part of this much broader family, and I put the news on Instagram, and I think I had sort of about 2,000 really sweet messages, and sadly nothing from the production company, which is a shame. But it makes me worry very much about the relationship between production and the participants, and I think Bay is very much one of the participants. So if it sort of drives to the heart of the problem. So if if production is paternalistic and is going to care for the people it chooses before, during, and after the show, then I wonder where is the care. Instead, I think really we should be looking at a system of running reality shows where there's more professionalism, where producers do what they are good at doing and produce, and then get out of the way and let care and professional development be done by the professionals. So that's theatrical agents.
We will definitely get to that, especially later in the show when we move off of Australia. No, I'm just saying. So I just want to let everybody know in the chat that we are going to be talking about all of Jeff's seasons. Obviously, we're going to focus on Australian Outback, and we're going to start with that. But then we will move on to Second Chances and Game Changers. So if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat. I know people have asked before. Like I said, I'm new at this, and I'm not so great at juggling all the balls at once. But today in particular, I know people are going to have questions. So just please, be respectful. But Jeff has let us know that he's ready to talk about everything. So that'll be fun. And we're talking about him, and he's not even in the show yet. So we are very, very honored and excited to welcome our guest, Jeff Varner. Jeff, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
We're great.
Excellent.
It's wonderful to see you.
It's nice to meet you as well. I didn't even know you guys were doing this kind of thing.
Jeff, we did mention this just a few seconds ago, but I have to say on air that it's really, this is the second time Karen has done this to me. It's really strange.
It's actually the third time, but who's counting?
Is it the third time? It's the
you
second
had Hatch, and then Kimmy.
Right. Yeah, but it's a second time you've done it without telling me who the guest is going to be, and I had to work it out. And I worked it out last week, I'm afraid, Jeff. I'm so sorry. And I suddenly had this revelation. And then about half an hour ago, I finished watching your episode. And you haven't changed very much. You look the same. I think.
No, I don't. I really.
Oh, I think it's the teeth of the grin. And so I'm a little bit starstruck. It's extraordinary.
Oh, don't be silly.
It's like being Doctor Who and walking out of the TARDIS into a different time zone. And having just seen what you were doing, it's very peculiar.
Right, and especially with the time jump, like I said, that you see somebody on TV, 18 years ago, and then you have this time jump where you get to meet the person today, which is fun.
20 years ago, actually, 20.
Is
almost
it really?
21. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, isn't it weird? Time flies.
How did it? How was it when you came off? Because you
let's talk about that.
Well, that sucked. That really did suck.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I didn't know. I had no idea what I was doing. So the whole time I'm out there, I have no idea what I'm doing. It took me a good 3-4 days just to calm down. I would do my interviews in the woods and I'd be shaking, or my voice would quiver because I was just nervous. I didn't really, it took a minute to calm down. And then eventually you get really, really comfortable. And I don't know. What was your question? How was it? It was awesome. It was amazing. When I got voted out, I knew it was coming. It was weird. Right as I haven't seen that episode in so long, so I'm trying to reach for what you actually saw.
Yes.
Right. So one of the first things we see is there's some discussion, and I think you said that, and I don't know if you use names, but you were aware that Okafor knew that there were votes against you. Right. And my understanding, and there are different stories about this, but the story that I've heard is that Kimmy, I guess it was at the waterfall, at the challenge where you had to jump off the waterfall production, they were trying to keep both tribes apart, and they dropped the ball and they were able to talk. And Kimmy told Tina that there was a vote against you.
That's my memory. I'm actually behind Kimmy. So she says she didn't. She said she didn't. But that's my memory. I just remember her face, her head. I remember seeing her head move, and Tina, like there was an acknowledgement. I just remember that. So I came out of nowhere to make it sort of a little more comfortable and said, sure, it was me. Like I confirmed it. I shouldn't have done that. That was stupid. But it was just my instinct, like I was saying, you get comfortable. And that was just a moment. Like I was about to jump off a cliff and Roger was going to drown. So I'm like, oh my God. Like I don't even remember what I was thinking that day, but I remember on top of that waterfall, I was a nervous wreck.
Oh.
And so who knows? It's weird the way Survivor causes you to make choices and decisions that you normally wouldn't.
But all TV of this nature encourages you to do that because it puts you under stress situations. Whether that's putting you in a room with strange jangly wallpaper, or overthinking or whatever, or whether it's putting you in these survival situations.
I had a long conversation after Game Changers with the show's therapist, and we talked about survivor brain.
Yeah,
it's real because yes, all of that is true. You're in a game where everybody's lying to you. The whole theme of every minute of every day is deception, and you're just stressed. And then you get voted out, and you're going, so you're desperate a little, and like you're just in a different place. And then you add to that the fact that you've gone 3 weeks or so without food, really, or sleep, and the chemicals in your brain change, and it doesn't make you a different person, but it does affect your ability to communicate, your ability to reason. Whether or not you do the right stuff, your decision making, it's just a challenging time. It's a different kind of thing.
So I just want to take actually a step back to last week, and because you were there, right, when Scoopin fell in the fire.
Oh my
you were
God,
one of the people who was there.
I'll never forget it.
Really?
Yeah. So that was my question was, I'm assuming that what we saw on the show was more or less what happened. Do you feel like, should they have filmed it and should they have shown it? What's your opinion on that?
Yes. I mean, you're accurately showing, I'm sure there could be arguments against how graphic it should have been.
Right. Like I said, I'm asking because a lot of people felt like they went too far, at the time.
And it didn't go far enough in terms of showing you how really graphic it was. It was a traumatic situation. So they did not go to certain situations. But it happened back then. It's weird because I have two different perceptions of reality TV and this show in particular. And that's the one back then, 20 years ago, when none of us knew what we were doing, not even the production team, and everybody was feeling their way through it, to now, or a few years ago, 30 some seasons later, where the producers have figured it out. And it's almost like McDonald's for drive-through, like a drive-through reality. They've got every system in place, everything in place, and it's just boom, 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 boom. And here you are. Back then, I felt like someone special, like they really thought I'd be good, and they liked me, and they chose me out of 60,000 people. And this last round and the last couple of rounds, it's more like you're a commodity. You feel that way anyway. And it's hard to explain to people who are on the show now or the last few years, because that's their only experience. They don't know what it was way back in the day. I don't have no idea what you asked me. And that's the thing that I always do. So just heads up, you're going to ask me something, I'm going to go off on a tangent, and you're going to have to bring me back.
Well, then you and Tim are going to have a great time, and we will hopefully we'll hit on a few things in the episode.
I want to say also for people watching is that I am at work. I'm working. So if I get a text or something, I might have to step away for a few moments, but don't cut me out. I'll be right back. I promise.
That's great. Yeah. So Tim and I will keep going.
Did you find when you so when you were in it the first time, did you find you sort of lost control of reality?
No, never.
You were always aware.
Not the first time. Oh, well, I mean, you get used to them being there. Yeah. Back in the day, they didn't speak to you. They didn't acknowledge you. They didn't have agendas or storylines already crafted out, really. They just followed you. Wherever you went, you went. Whatever you did, the producers were so good that they would just capture what you organically did and tell a story of what you organically did. And it was real, and I loved it so much. Now it's different. I think they almost determine who's the winner.
I think so.
Well, they certainly cast for these archetypes, right? And so when they cast the season, because we need the gay guy, right? Yeah. And we need a bro or two, and we need some girls who look good in bikinis, and we need one old person, And it's funny you call it McDonald's. I think Mario Lanza from the Survivor historians call it the same thing. That modern Survivor is McDonald's. Yeah. You know what you're going to get, and it's going to be okay, but you know exactly what you're going to get.
Maybe this is for the discussion later on, but now it's not about Sorry, I got a text coming in. I just forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. This could be a nightmare, y'all.
So let's
Real estate is out of control right now. It's weird, but
there we are.
Okay. Oh, so one other question.
Bring me back to work.
Okay, so assuming that this version of reality that we all seem to have, if Kimmy had not told Tina, if production had been able to keep the two tribes apart, do you have any idea what might have happened?
No, and I don't know that I've really thought about that.
And I'm not sure this question can be answered, but I was just curious because if they didn't know, they may have voted for me anyway. I don't know. Oh, yeah, it's certainly possible.
Even putting us even out 5-5 made it a draw. I do know that rule about if you have the event of a tie, previous votes counted against you is how you determine who goes and who doesn't.
When were you told this rule?
The night before we left. They pulled us all out one at a time. Oh, yeah, before the game started, but literally the night before we started the game. Like, we had already left. We'd already gone through our contract. We saw the rules. We knew what everything was. Then we're about to go to bed to get up in the morning to go do it. And they make us sign this thing. And I'm reading it. And so you're excited. You're nervous. This is happening. You read that and you say, oh, that's the rule. But then you get into it and you don't really think too much about it, honestly, until you see that situation coming. And then somebody else will mention to you, remember, know.
And it sounds like also they did tell you, same in Borneo, that they seem to know that we're going to start with 16 people and then we're going to vote off 6 and then we're going to merge at 10. At this point, they don't tell the contestants that anymore. And, the merge can happen in different places in the season. But you guys did know that up front.
Did know what?
That, like I said, that you're going to merge at 10.
Yes. It was spelled out really in detail how that was going to go. But they threw that rule on us at the last minute.
Right. In this episode, you are narrating the merge. You're explaining to us what's going to happen. That's how the episode begins.
Right. Right.
You are the voice of God, which made me very satisfied.
That's weird. You're not the first to tell me that.
Yeah.
Apparently, I was the narrator. I was the great chorus.
And you've been the narrator in all of your seasons, right? And I'm certainly on Game Changers.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, on Game Changers, on Second Chances. You absolutely
Second
were.
Chances, yes, because I was out of control. I was
Actually, I forgot. Control. You. So, like I said, we're going around in circles because my head is going around in circles because I have not slept. So we're going back at the beginning of this episode. So this is interesting. Ogakor still does not know what happened to Skupin, right? They got this message. There was an accident at Kucha. That's all they know. And then we see them that the tribes are, it's time for the merge. So they have this idea that they're going to get to know each other. And this is something that does not happen in many other seasons. But before the actual, merge feast, they set up this thing where, each tribe, we're going to let you get to know each other in small groups. You'll check out the other camp. And it sounds like the women are going to stay in their camp, right? They're going to cook a meal and the men are going to swap. And I'm like, seriously? I mean, in 2000, do we really have to do this? The women have to be the cooks and the men have to. But then it turns out that's not really what happens, that they give the opposite message to Kucha. So they also think, right, that the women are coming and they are ready to, kill their last chicken, and they're all excited that and we have there's a note from you. You said you're happy to woo the Ogakor chicks, right?
Oh yes, keeping the chicks apart.
Yes,
keeping the chick apart. I don't know about wooing.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, the other funny part of this is that Jeff is gay, but he was not out on Australian Outback. So
yes, I was. Yes,
you
I
were.
Was. They just didn't put it in the show.
Oh, so you were out in your personal life, but on the show they did not make that clear.
No, even in the show, like we talked about it. I talked openly about it to people. Like nobody asked. It wasn't really a thing.
Right.
And then I remember Mark Burnett telling me right before the show, he's like, "We're not really going to treat your gay because we don't want. I think you can win, and I don't want people to see another gay man win right after Richard Hatch."
Right.
He did have that conversation with me. So I knew that my storyline was not going to show that, but I didn't hide it from anybody.
Right. No, because there was a few times like that I was just so maybe I was kind of chuckling to myself because I didn't know that you were.
Yeah, the viewer wouldn't know that.
Right.
And that was an interesting sea of attention to come out to when it was all out. And, you're doing your press and everybody's like assuming this, that, and the other. Then they start asking, I was on, what's his name? Howard Stern's show. And he was determined to get me to say I am gay, and I felt it, and I wouldn't do it. So I started playing a game with people a little bit. It's like, it's none of your business.
Interesting.
Season 34, so fucking ironic, but anyway.
Right, exactly. But they had decided that you were not going to be out, so therefore you were not out. Yeah, that is, and I understand that's how it works. But it was like my reaction to you, like that's my reaction to you as a character changed, and also possibly with the passage of time. Because I'll tell you, on Australian Outback, obviously you're great in confessionals, right? You're very smart, snarky. But I just looked at him, I'm like, he's a pretty boy. I mean, this was my reaction to 20 years ago. You're pretty. You're pretty.
Thank you.
Right?
Oh, I know. I knew Colby was pretty.
I think Colby was very
But
pretty.
I never thought to myself, oh, I'm one of the pretty ones. Like I was cast to be the hot guy. Like never.
Oh, but you are.
But you were, yeah. I would say there is Colby, but you're number 2 in terms of the the eye candy. Yeah, so
Nick Brown is pretty hot.
Yeah, and so it's funny you say with Colby because like what's the comment you made when they came? You said all I see is teeth.
Fuck no.
Yeah, which was fun,
He's
but
very good.
But my reaction was, I bet he saw a whole lot more, but that didn't make the show.
I don't remember even having any kind of oogling and ogling over anybody, really. I think I was just more scared, terrified about what was going on. But that is a recollection I have of meeting Colby for the first time, was just the big mouth of teeth.
Teeth, right.
Mm-hmm. Big white teeth.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And it's actually funny because we had, where did it go? I thought somebody made a comment about your teeth in the chat, but now I'm not able to see it.
They might have. I have it too. I'm not saying that I don't have.
So right. So we see all the women are together and they're hearing about what happened to Skupin and then at Kucha, you cooked your last chicken for Colby and Keith. And then you did say something that really also got me. You said that you picked up that Keith is an outsider.
Yes.
Which really was true. But
yes.
What led you to that?
He followed Colby around like a little puppy. Mm-hmm. And he would look to Colby for acknowledgement of how he was going to respond. And, I caught up a whole lot. I saw that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, who is their weak link over there? And, and I don't know. It was just in that moment, I thought to myself, Keith is not really liked by a lot of people maybe. And that there's something about him. He's just not sure. And he's looking for approval. It was really clear Colby was in charge of Keith to me there.
Yeah, and clearly that was true. Right. Yeah. But I was wondering if
Keith was going quite early on. In fact, at one point I thought he had gone. And he seemed to me, in fact, he still seems to me not to have very much character.
Which one?
Keith. He seems a little bit vacuous. It's like watching a shadow. I know he defines himself by cooking, but he's not even doing that. And I think
because Jerry won't let him.
What is his purpose? And so I'm surprised he's managed to hang on this long. And I think if he hadn't won the game in this episode, he was likely to go. He's never going to be a winner. This is quite clear.
Right. And again, so this is funny. So Tim, I'm saying at this point, has seen a season and a half of reality TV. Yeah. But he's already, without knowing it, he's learning how to read the edit, because he said last week that the winner was going to be Tina, Colby, or you. And so that's my point, is that, without realizing it.
You're both doing poker faces. You're not.
We're doing our best here. We're doing our best.
I'm trying not to, the fact that you haven't seen the rest of the season is difficult.
Right. No, but my point is that
Keith outlasts me, so how would I know, right?
Right.
Well, I think Keith outlasts you by error. I mean, it's not by talent. It's a mistake. It's the fact that he can stand on a pole. And there are people in the ancient world, not the ancient world, actually about 300 AD. Who made a feature of standing on poles. They were called the Stylites. The most famous one is Simon Stylites, and he stood on a pole about 30 foot high in the middle of some town, and people came to admire him. And
why was he standing on a pole so the people?
Well, because initially the monks went off to caves and found little caves and lived in there, and then I think the caves got filled up. And they were all running off. I want to be alone, and then other people would run around. Can I be alone with you? So even at that point, it was a euphemism for gay. And so you have all these men living alone with you, and then eventually they want to live on the top of pillars, which is sort of phallic imagery. So we're sort of in another version of the gay agenda. Agendum, and now we've got these great poles sticking up out of the town with a person perched on the top of each one.
That's fascinating.
They would stand there for about 30 years. And Simon Stylites, somebody wrote about him, and he said that when the fleas and the insects fell off his hair, he bent down, picked them up, and put them back in case they were deprived of a meal. And so you think, thank God he was so far up there, because he would have been rather smelly. And what about lavatorial functions? I mean, worth just sliding down the pole. I'm fascinated by this. Anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you spend 30 years on top of the pole, that's what I was thinking. I'm assuming you come down occasionally and then you go back up.
Come down, but forgive me for being so basic. 10 hours on the top of a pole. There must have been some lavatorial issues.
That's a good point.
4. I was only there for 4.
Yeah, but that's a good question. Did anybody lose control of the bladder?
Not that they discussed.
Right.
I don't remember it being a thing.
Yeah, no, I've always wondered in a case like that, because certainly
you're not drinking any water thoe, and by day 21 you're dehydrated, and so probably not.
Right.
Probably not.
Probably not. Well, I mean, I just the nerves would make me a little bit squiffy. I think. The whole thing seems slightly inhuman.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's, we're going to get to that in just a second, but let's take one step back. So the next piece of the story is they get 15 minutes to move to a new camp, and they're going to have to rebuild everything from scratch. So, and they've done this a few times in Survivor history. They did it also in Second Chances. But do you have any idea why? How did this camp compare to the Kucha camp? I just wanted to kind of get your take on that. Do you know why they did it? Was it a good idea? Was it just for drama?
Drama, sure, certainly. But the Kucha camp was spectacular. There was not a problem with it at all. We had everything we needed. Everything was laid out. We all had everything right there. We even had a little jacuzzi rock situation going on, and I loved it so much. I really want to go back there. I remember about the merge it was dry riverbed.
That was one of the things I wanted to ask you about. So that they did build the new shelter in that dry riverbed in the end.
In it. Yeah. And not to give anything away for Tim, but it was very comfortable. It was really good sleeping. And Jerry and everybody had figured out how to scoop out the sand. So she made little holes that were ergonomically perfect, because your legs would sit in a certain way and you could just lay there, and it was recliners a bit. It was so comfortable. It was some of the best. That's the best Survivor sleeping I've had, was sleeping on that beach. But I only did it for a night, I think, maybe 2. I don't remember.
Wow.
Interesting. So then everybody meets up. There's lots of hugging. There's a big crate. And Elizabeth is crying that they're getting food, and I'm watching this going, you're on Kucha. You've been eating. You had pork. You had chicken. I mean, I understand. I'm sure you're still probably hungry. But she's literally crying that they're getting food, even though she's been eating every day. So what did they get? They got cheese and crackers and dates. Okay. Dates.
I remember dates, grapes and stuff. I hated dates. I would never touch one, and I remember eating it there, and it was the best date I've ever. It was the best thing I've ever eaten. It was so good, and the wine, they had like red wine from Australia.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tina said this was the first time she'd ever tried wine.
Really? It was so good. Like the flavor of it, the way the things tasted at that point was just amazing. And I got a little lightheaded and I stopped.
Yeah.
I can see how you can get in trouble real quick out there.
Yeah.
You get drunk and you start running your mouth.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it happens on Survivor and it happens in Big Brother. I would like to think that if I played, I wouldn't drink on the show, just because I'd want to have my wits about me.
Aaron, you don't need to drink. They can give you sugar as well. It has the same effect.
That's true.
Deprive somebody of a few meals and then give them a very nice iced bun, and you're away.
It's true. I was super dehydrated. My blood sugar was really low at one point early in the game, and I felt like I was going to faint, like pass out. Like, it would get super dizzy, and I just didn't feel very well. And the producers pulled me into the jungle to make sure I was okay. And the doctor gave me a sugar lozenge of some sort.
Oh, yes.
And I ate that and went back to camp, felt like $1 million. Everybody's like, what did you just do? So I made up a story about how I'm drinking, but they actually gave me sugar. So you're right.
Yeah.
I was hyped up.
Yeah.
It does amazing things for you. In this episode, Jeff is busy giving you chocolate and peanut butter, which I think is disgusting. But your scoop of peanut butter was frankly obscene.
It's so funny that Tim picked up on this, because Jeff, I know that you've been regretting that. I shouldn't put words in your mouth, but my understanding is that have you still ever eaten peanut butter again?
Yes, I have. But I did go 16 years without it. I didn't touch it for 16 years.
I've never had it.
It's disgusting.
You've never had peanut butter?
Simply the smell of peanut butter. It's up there for me with a thing called Marmite. It's a chunder opportunity, upchuck. And you have to mention
sometimes I get a craving for it and I'll have it.
Do you?
Something. Yeah, sometimes it's weird. But
oh my goodness. So did you have a child?
Usually when I have Indian food or Thai food that requires like a peanut sauce dipping stuff. That's how I started back with it, honestly.
Yeah, but it was because I do remember you saying, I think in Second Chances, right, that you had not had peanut butter since.
I hadn't. It was after. It was when I got back from that, I had peanut butter.
Yep. Fair enough.
But it looked like it was peanut butter with lots of things in it as well. It was.
I don't remember. I can't even remember. There was chocolate. There was chocolate as well.
Peanut chocolate. And it's funny that so they will do this challenge.
Or was it? I don't remember.
They have done this challenge many other times, and chocolate and peanut butter. For those who are Survivor fans, this I don't know if it's a meme, but will come back in terms of what people will do to get chocolate and peanut butter. I'm just going to put a pin in that because we'll talk about that in a year or so.
I would swim out into further down the creek to avoid peanut butter. I think I would. Yeah. I would want to distance myself from the peanut butter.
So that's the question. So Tim, on your show, obviously, you didn't starve. My understanding is you could pretty much order within reason anything you wanted. But if you were, let's say, if you were in a show and to get an advantage in the game, let's say, would you eat peanut butter or Marmite?
No.
Yes. No? Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, absolutely.
No, I think Tim is saying no.
I'd eat anything.
I think there are standards. I think there are red lines you don't cross, and these are both moral and culinary.
I would eat anything if I needed to.
Okay, but I don't know. I have a feeling that Survivor, the production was not really planning for a 10.5-hour challenge, right? But so after, so just went through it. So Nick jumps off, and same thing. He said he's tired, he's sick, and I can understand. Like I said, if you're already feeling woozy, you're just like, I'm not going to be able to do this.
You feel horrible. And now, back then we didn't have all these challenges to win food and things. We had chickens. Right. We would eat a chicken a day, split between 6 people. We had rice. That's all. And then the pig came along, and that was really good. But how you just said today? Today's Survivor, you get more of a chance to eat more.
Right.
So I remember in my later seasons that I felt healthier and better than I did the first time. Was really awful.
Well, and that's why I think they gave you the sugar, because I do think it's a fine line that on the one hand, you do want people to suffer a little bit and be able to see the effects. But on the other, if you have people who are just, like you said, dehydrated and have low blood sugar, all you're going to do is lie around in the shelter all day. And that's not a good TV show.
That's true.
So they kind of have to walk that line.
Well, why was Alicia not eating pork?
Did Alicia not eat the pork?
She makes a point that she doesn't eat pork at one point in today's show.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember it either.
Kimmy. Was it Kimmy?
No.
Kimmy, right? Because Kimmy doesn't eat mammals.
No. But Alicia makes the point today, and
she may have said that. I don't remember though.
I'm not saying it didn't happen, but
the line was she doesn't eat pork, but my goodness, would she eat it if it was available? But I was wondering,
fair enough.
I remember when I ate the pork, I literally felt the nutrients travel from my stomach. I felt it travel up my back and down my arm and to the tips of my fingers. I felt it.
Oh my goodness!
And I remember having that moment of being present in that, like really sort of thinking, "Wow, this is how food works."
Yeah,
it was instant.
Yeah,
so caveman stuff, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Say what?
It's caveman stuff.
It's
very basic.
Yeah.
Flight, freeze. And all these sort of things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this goes on for 10.5 hours, basically, and we're down to Tina and Keith. And Keith, looks at Tina and says, I need this one. And Tina understands because she knows that there's votes against Keith, steps down, and, Keith has won immunity. Now, again, Mario Lanza has said that, if he had not asked that, Tina would probably still be on that damn pole. Right, she was just not coming down.
Yeah, no, Tina would have won that.
So we
knew that they knew they were voting for me, and they knew that Keith had more votes against him than me. So it would be a tie. Right. And she did that to protect and preserve, which was brilliant of her, actually.
Yeah.
What I didn't know until later was that Jerry had more, and she sat there wide open. Maybe you're getting to that. But.
Yeah. Now, so I was also wondering, though, because Colby also jumps off, only a couple of hours in. Do you think, he did that? Do you think he did that, again, to protect Keith and kind of pull votes to himself? Or did he not want to win because he's already a physical threat?
That's interesting, maybe.
Yeah.
Why did you vote for Colby?
Well, that's right. So the whole tribe voted for Colby. Why did they
everybody did. It just, he was there. We because he came over to us, we assumed he was the leader, the ringleader, all that. He was just the one that needed to go. It's like,
yeah, you said something in confessional that you saw that, like, at that merge feast, that he's talking to one person, he's talking to another person, he's looking at you, he's counting fingers.
Yeah, right. It may have been, those three were working together, so it may have been.
Right.
And in contrast, what is so fascinating is that once Michael has gone, it's clear that you are the leader of Kuchab.
No.
In the edit,
I never was. Maybe.
Yeah, but in the edit, there's a question about whether Nick can come up to the whether Nick can come up to it, and he can't. There's lots of efforts are made by him. I mean, there's an effort today where he's starting to look dynamic, but he never follows through.
Yeah,
and so it sort of, I wouldn't have wanted to, if I were playing strategically, which I wouldn't do, by the way. I would try and save you. I would throw myself. I would
feel that in you, and I would follow you everywhere.
Thank you. It's my martyr instinct. I tried to throw myself off my own show, and I wasn't allowed to do it. I thought, sacrifice.
I didn't know that's right. Wait, you wanted to quit basically so that Woody and Ella could win?
Yeah. I was constantly in the position where I had an opportunity to block somebody, and there was a particular time when it looked as if I had to block one of my friends, Ella. So I said, "Oh, the person I want to block is Tim," and I was told I couldn't do that. But they took a long time to make that decision.
Wow. They told you what you could and couldn't do. You had producers that told you what you could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With hindsight, clearly, because they hadn't anticipated that there would be somebody who would be so indifferent to winning £100,000 or whatever it was. And I really was.
It happened on this season of Big Brother this summer also, Jeff. I don't know if you thought it all. Yeah, but one of the players really wanted to quit, largely because he missed his girlfriend. He didn't really want to be there in the first place. This was all stars.
So? Do you really think so?
No, I was going to say that's what.
I feel like Tyler, we're talking about a different show now, but I feel like he realized very quickly what the mood of the moment in the United States. And here you got two black girls nominated and it's your fault. And I am at the center of this. He knew people cry racist when that happens. He knew it. And I feel like that was basically just a self-serving image situation where he could argue, it wasn't me. That's not what I was thinking. I'm not saying he did put them up because he's racist. I'm just saying that he realized it looked that way. I don't think he ever had any intention of quitting, actually. But that's a different show and a different thing.
Interesting.
But like I said, it feeds into the same into the same issues.
Right.
So many of the same issues.
Right. But in this case, I mean, my understanding is he was literally not allowed. Now, obviously, you're not a prisoner, right? You could walk off the set. But basically, my understanding is that the executive producer, Alison Grodner, went over there to tell him that he was not quitting.
I've met her several times, and I can see that in her. I can see that she would tell him that. Maybe not as a I'm not allowing it. Legally, you can't. You're staying and you're locking him in there, but definitely as a motivator. I'm not letting you get out of here kind of a thing.
Yeah, well, obviously they can't lock you in, but my understanding, the kind of stuff they'll say is, especially because this season they also, besides the regular, money you can win, I think they all got $40K, just to show up.
Oh, did they?
So the idea is, yes, not only will you not get your $40K and, then they get a stipend for every week that they're in there, but you're going to have to pay us back for the cost of, you were quarantined in a hotel room for 2 weeks. You're going to have to pay us back for that. You're going to pay us back for your flights, So again, we don't know exactly what was said, but given things that have been said to other people who have wanted to leave shows, that seems to be what happened. But it is interesting, and we'll get back to Survivor in a minute. But I would have thought the production would have kind of loved that moment where Tyler, takes himself for Black Lives Matter.
I'm sure of it.
Then why? If anything, I would have thought they would have put the thumb on the other side of the scale. But
I don't know. It's weird because I do hear through the grapevine that Big Brother producers do weigh the scale a little bit more than other shows.
Well, especially it makes sense because, the show is happening in real time. So on Survivor, they can guess, and I'm assuming they're fairly good at it, figuring out who is going to be liked and disliked. And then obviously you build that narrative. So
100%.
you encourage certain people to be liked and disliked, but you don't literally know who's going to be the winner. Right. Whereas on Big Brother, because they can actually see fan reaction in real time, there is even more of an incentive. And the other thing on Big Brother is just it's baked into the game. Right. That's why I asked about on Survivor that you knew exactly how many people there were when the merge came and how the game dynamics works. Whereas in Big Brother, they have built it into the game that the slogan is expect the unexpected. So basically it means this is Big Brother. We are going to fuck with you. Right. Just when you think you're in a good spot, we're going to mess up the game. And I feel like as long as people know going in that we can, obviously in any show, right, you sign the waiver that says we can do whatever we want and you can't do anything about it. But if you know going in, like I said, that we're just going to change the rules a bunch of times to make things more interesting, I don't have a problem with it. Whereas on Survivor, I have more of a problem because you like to think that you know the rules of the game that you're playing.
Well, the rules of the game surely are survival, which means there aren't very many rules. It's like going into war. It's that's the name of the game. But what I find so fascinating is the people I've met and the people I've spoken to over the last series and a half. Survivor seems dominated by this idea that people will do anything to win $1 million, and I just don't understand this. I don't understand it as much now as when I came into this. I thought I don't understand this. I still don't understand it.
Yeah,
Jeff, help me out, please.
No, I think you're on the right.
Money?
It's a fascinating topic to study. Absolutely.
Right. But certainly most people who go on these shows are largely there, right, because of the chance of winning the money. I mean, they're there for other reasons as well.
Right, definitely. But yeah, that's $1 million. That's a lot of money. So it doesn't go as far as it used to, but it goes a long way and it can help. And you never really know what people are doing, what's in their life, what's holding them down, what they need that money for. And,
Right.
And would it have changed your life if you had won? Or
oh my gosh, yes.
But your life,
I mean, I don't know if it would have changed it for the better, but it would have changed it. It certainly would have sent me down a different trajectory for sure.
Right. Well, but the show did that anyway, right? Because you were. So let's talk about a little bit about what happened after Survivor. Let's finish this episode and then we'll talk about what happened after.
Jeff, what were you doing before Survivor?
I was working at an internet startup in New York City, building internet communities before Facebook.
Oh my goodness!
I look back on that and I think, what the fuck? Like, look at what I had on my fingers. If I'd have just realized and had the, foresight of where we were headed. Like I'm older, so I remember working without internet. Like you do. I remember the days that came along and working for a bank and learning and being trained how to code and do all this stuff to work I was working in a PR division of Citibank actually. And
so you're a mathematician?
No.
No.
I'm a marketer and a creative. So I was helping executives shape their messages to produce product. And we were they separated a division out to work with this new thing called the internet. And let's figure out a way that all of these people all over the country can communicate with one another. And we hired a consultant that came in and I bonded with them and they pulled me away and I went to work for them. And that company went under while I was playing Survivor. So when I came back, I learned I didn't have a job anymore. In a weird way.
So that was in the late 80s, presumably.
99, late 90s.
Yeah, right before he played.
You got involved in the internet.
Oh, mid 90s actually.
Mid 90s.
Early 90s. Actually, early 90s when it really started to. I mean, the internet was around, but in terms of it being used commercially and these people devising ways to change our lives with it.
Yeah. I remember the first time I heard of it would have been around about 1992.
Yeah, and this is 94 or 95.
Yeah, and I was working in computer games, and not really understanding that because I'd never really played computer games either. So I don't know how I keep sort of slotting myself into these things I've never done. But it was fascinating, and And I remember we were communicating with people through the very basic form of email, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I remember when I got email at home because I was living overseas. And I think this was like 1993. Again, we got it before I feel like most people did, especially, in the area was because, it was for my husband's work. And the fact that I could send a message to somebody in the US and, get it back immediately, because before that it was either phone calls were $2 a minute or you wrote letters. Those were the options.
And I also remember I was designing these computer games with the Atari, with an Amiga, I think, and designing it pixel by pixel, and then suddenly this thing Adobe appeared, and this was magical, and we had to use it on Apple. I think we had to use it on Apple computers.
Photoshop, all that stuff. Like I was there when
that was coming in at that time in the early 1990s.
Yeah,
and
who knows? If my company hadn't gone under, who knows where I would have been in that moment. But I actually graduated from university with a degree in journalism. So my goal was to be a news person.
Yeah.
Was that one of the reasons you applied to the show? Because you felt it would open doors?
No,
or just
not at all.
To play?
I skipped a day of work, went and had some drinks with some friends of mine, and I came home shit-faced and sat down and watched an episode of Survivor. And I thought, I want to do that. And the next day, started working on it, and then they announced their casting, and that's how it kind of came to be.
And what was your video?
Oh God, I don't remember, honestly.
Okay.
I don't remember
some of the older ones. I'll have to see, because I know in the Borneo finale, and again, I haven't rewatched this finale in a while, but I know with Borneo they showed a few of the audition videos. So we'll have to see, or I might be able to find it on YouTube. I should have checked that before we came out here.
So you must have applied before Borneo had finished airing.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Yes. No, Borneo was in the summer. It aired in the summer. So I applied toward the end of it. And I was applying and going through the process while I was watching it, which is
interesting.
Awesome. And I remember being in the hotel room for our finals. I want to say September 22nd for some reason. The Olympics, the Australian Olympics was happening at that moment. And that's when I found out. And then we left, I think, October 18th.
And did you know it was going to be in Australia?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Right. So
they sent us videotapes. I remember getting a big box of videotapes of the Outback and things to learn and do.
Right, because you really, especially out there really were things you cannot eat, you cannot touch, etc.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, but because now again, when they're filming in Fiji, it's a much more developed area. I don't know if that's the right words, but
No, it's not about survival anymore. It's about a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's about challenges, and that's it, really, to me, I think.
Yeah. No, I think all three of us are watching. Can't speak for Tim, but certainly for me, because all these little human moments in terms of, again, Tim hasn't seen Modern Survivor, but they keep throwing in these twists and these trinkets and these immunity. The immunity idol obviously was part of the beginning, but trying to keep the game. And obviously, you have to adapt and change because people get bored watching the same show for 20 years. But as a result,
people don't get bored with human interest. There's stories of someone's struggle in their life and their things, and you see a little of that today, but not like you used to. I think what you see a lot more today of is a specific engineering of those issues. For whatever reason, either it's casting flaws or something, they just aren't finding the right people to tell these stories. Like, people are out there, maybe they're not applying, I don't know. But finding somebody and a little nugget of somebody, it used to be they tried to hide that because they didn't want to hurt you. And now it's exploiting that. So let's find you don't want to be touched. Okay, great. Let me put you on a tribe with somebody who can't keep their hands to themselves. Let's do it that way. Then we're going to have this big explosion, and then we can do the Me Too movement. And yay. Okay, let's do that. Like, I can sense that that's where it is today. And it's really disturbing to me. It bothers me so much.
But I think this is the case with all forms, with all manifestations of this genre, that it's become about the game and about potentially exploiting the individuals who are playing it.
It's about greed. It's about money for the people who are making the money off the show.
Well, that may also be the case.
Trying to keep it relevant, trying to keep it on topic, trying to keep it in the paper so it stays and continues to grow. And now,
there's a symbiotic relationship between the media, the producers of the shows, and actually the sort of professional people who really should be supporting individuals, and they're just keeping quiet and keeping back because this is cheap entertainment. And I think it's got a place. I think it's I think there's an opportunity to allow ordinary people to participate in our entertainment. I think that's great. But what we've got is ordinary people being exploited, and it becomes gladiatorial, bloodfest.
100%.
And I'm, literally, I'm coming into this as a sort of virgin, and I've only known about it for about a year. My partner used to sit and watch Big Brother, and he was encouraged by actually my publisher years and years ago, and she lived across the road from us, and she said, "Oh, this is amazing thing, Big Brother." And I think I took one look at the first 5 minutes and walked off to do some work, and he got quite pulled into it, and I thought, "What is this nonsense?" And then there were one or two of them, and I was interested in Jade Goody. I thought her story was extraordinary, and the bile which came out of the public against her.
Do you know this story?
I don't know this story, but I remember season 7, Nikki Graham.
Tell me what happened to Nikki Graham? Is that over here?
Yeah, you're right. Season 7 of the UK Big Brother. I think it's season 7. Nikki Graham's first season.
And what happened? Tell me.
What didn't happen? She's batshit crazy. Like, she lost it, and it was fantastic. And I remember watching it on YouTube, and yes, I was so glued.
Yeah,
I'm a different human now. I can't stand any of it. But
it seems to me, Jeff, that that you've got two issues. You've got the one issue of people who are put in stressful situations, and they do and say things which they probably wouldn't do under normal circumstances, and then they regret them.
Absolutely.
So that's one form of exploitation, but there's a much deeper form of exploitation where you're on these programs, you're controlled, and then I think that control, it's very difficult to get rid of that, and it's very difficult to get rid of that sense of being controlled, and so the fallout from these programs is enormous.
Well, we're going to get there. So let's go there. Before we're going to get to Game Changers. Anything with second chances? Sorry. Well, I mean,
it's fine.
You're teasing me with these things. I don't know anything about this, Jeff, and I'm
so quickly. Okay, so
you ain't ready.
Yeah. So Jeff's second season was called Second Chances, and this is something that I'm really, really surprised that they haven't done it again, because I felt it was very, very successful. What they did is they got together a slate of 36 or 40 people who have played Survivor before, but only exactly once. That's why they called it Second Chances. And then they opened it up to an audience vote, right? We're going to need 10 men and 10 women. Tell us who you want to see. And then at the finale of the previous season, they announced it live, who was going and who was not. And those of you who were chosen, they immediately got on the buses, and the next day they flew out and they played the game.
That was an amazing night, I have to say. That was an amazing experience. The entire experience of campaigning to get on the show and to be chosen, right up to the moment where Jeff is standing there on live TV and tells you whether you're in or you're out. That was an amazing experience. And the days that followed, we didn't really leave the next day. We left probably 3 or 4 days later.
Okay.
They kept us there, and we did.
But at that point, but they took your phones away. At that point, you are.
Oh yeah, yeah. I want to say they gave them back to us for a minute. I can't remember, but yes, they did.
Wow.
Cambodia was an amazing experience going there.
Yeah, I remember. So in terms of campaigning, so how did that all start? I assume production gives you a call and says, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this." Did they tell you initially that it was going to be a second chances with voting, or?
It's weird because they start, I don't know how they do it, but I think they decide what they're going to do at the end of a year, and then the early January of the next year after New Year's. I remember getting a call in January saying, "We want you on the next one. Are you willing to whatever?" And so for a month and a half, I'm thinking, I might get to do this again. And then they come back and they shift it. Well, actually, you're not in. You're part of a group, and
Right.
you'll have to be voted. So we're going to go ahead and put it all together so that you're ready to go. And if you don't get chosen, we'll pay you for your time and thank you very much. And if you do, go. And I remember it being all that.
Right. And
but they called me early in January of that year to let me know that I was in consideration for something.
And by this point, Jeff, you were a news anchor as well, or?
Yeah, actually, I had just gotten fired. I got fired. We had a new news director come in, and news directors come in and change talent. You know, they bring in who they are, and she didn't like me anyway. So I had just lost my job.
Which company were you working for?
It was a CBS affiliate, actually.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I've worked for a few, but at the time, that was a CBS affiliate.
And what skills do you need to be an anchor?
Well, you got journalism chops, first of all. I mean, we're all biased as human beings. We all have a bias, but the art of being a good journalist is to be able to do your work without letting that bias come through. That takes years of work because you automatically want to tell a story because you politically think that's what should be going and you can't. Or you have to go interview a candidate who's on the opposite side of where you are and you have to be professional and fair, and that this years and years of experience to give you that. You have to be able to talk on your feet. You have to be able to handle when you have to be able to write. You have to be able to research. You have to be able to look into a camera and connect to a human being so that they feel like you're listening to them and you're talking to them and not just delivering a lecture to a group of people. There's an art to all of it. And then there's breaking news when things go wrong and teleprompters go down and scripts don't come out and you're sitting there on live TV and what the fuck do I do right now? Like I've got some really great stories and you have to just fly by the seat of your pants and just go with it and make it work. There was one show that we did during the US Open where the US Open was on CBS and I was a morning noon anchor. So it was like 11:30 and all morning they were like, tennis is taking over TV. There will be no noon newscast. Don't worry about it. So I'm fucking around at my desk. I'm searching the internet. I'm talking on the phone. And it's like 11:55. I hear over the TV, we're watching the tennis tournament. We're going to take a break right now for your local newscast. We'll be back in 30 minutes. And I heard the production team scream. And I thought, what? And I slap on some makeup and I take off running down a hallway and their lights are coming on and it was the last minute. And I'm like, what do I say? What do I do? I have no scripts. We've written nothing. What happens? And they're like, 5, 4, 3, 2, go. And that is 30 minutes of my life I will never forget as long as I live. I wrote a blog about it. With no help at all.
Yeah.
Well, I had done the morning news, so I knew what the news of the day was. And so I just started bullshitting. Like, here's what's happening today. This is going on. This is going on. We had a brand new weatherman that was his very first newscast with us, a kid right out of school. And when you have something like that, people are interested in weather. So you fill up your newscast with weather. And so I'm throwing it to the new kid on the block and I'm like, talk, go.
Did you have any video to cut to at all?
He was just talking about maps and going on. He was so good. He saved my ass. So while that's happening, scripts are printing, people are handing me scripts and then they're saying that's wrong, grabbing them, throwing them away, handing me another stack. And I'm looking, thinking, what? Who wrote this? What is this? What's happening? And then it comes back to me. And I'm like, so there was a dog that whatever. And then all of a sudden there's video that pops up of a dog. And then it's like, okay, I remember this story from this morning. So I started telling the story of the dog. And then the next thing, a video would pop up and I would look at it and I'd be like, I remember that. And we figured out a rhythm there in the middle. Yeah. It's like, we're just going to put shit on TV and you go. And when it was over with, that studio looked like a disaster zone. There was paper everywhere. And we all felt accomplished. That's the proudest day I've ever been.
I'm sure.
Myself as a news anchor. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. You asked.
No.
Jeff, we love tangents.
I spent a lot of time lecturing in Moscow, and I'd get off the plane, and one of my minders would meet me, and once twice I think she actually met me on the plane and walked me down the steps into a car, and I thought, gosh, I'm so grand. I don't have to go through the formal. All this horror of passport control. It's all handled for me. And I remember on one occasion we got in this car And she said, "It's so wonderful you're here. You're lecturing on the death of the British novel." And I thought, I haven't thought about that. And she said, and I said, "Well, when? Tomorrow?" She said, "No, today at 12 o'clock." And it was 10 o'clock. And I thought, oh my God, I've not done anything. I've got a 3 hour or 2 hour lecture with sort of 800 people up, these banks of seats. And literally, I got out of the car and straight into my lecture room. I bunged on my gown. I thought, if you can't have a bit of academic razzmatazz and something to hide in, what's the point of it? And I think a lot of the thing, and they filmed it as well, just to make it delightful. They filmed the whole thing.
Those things really shape you. Like that's where you earn your stripes. That's where you prove your medal. That's where you make your money. That's it. That's those are the moments.
When I first went over there, they provided a translator for me, and I thought this is wonderful, because even when there's these ghastly moments where I'm not prepared, if they're translating, I've only got to do half the work, because I can plan the next few sentences while they're translating the rubbish I've just said. But then they suddenly decided everybody could understand me. And suddenly I've got double the amount of time to fill with this rubbish. And I never knew, really. I never knew on those days what I was doing. And sometimes I go from lecture to lecture, and they'd all have to be different. And just terrifying.
We probably have some stories we can share privately. But I think my ability to do that, and an anchor's ability to do that on their feet, really sort of helped me regarding Survivor and my tribals. So I was able to think on my feet. I was able to talk, and
So this
I would get in news anchor mode before a tribal.
Yeah, this is why you were so good in the confessionals.
Right, and like I said, he doesn't even really know how good you were in the later seasons, because again, it just gets better, right? Because same, like I said, you're comfortable looking. I was
good in later seasons.
But you're comfortable looking into the camera and telling people a story, which is exactly what your job is, and that's what confessionals are.
And did you feel you bound with anybody in the tribe, and you liked them?
Yes, everybody. Yeah, I came away friends with everybody. I didn't have any enemies after Australia at all. It was just a wonderful experience. Later on in life, you see more of who people are, and you grow apart, and learn to respect and not respect other people for various reasons. But in that season, in those moments, we were really close, all of us. Yeah. There were only 16 of survivors out there, so we were now one
and
of
you
32.
have this extraordinary experience that you share.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And everybody's treating you like you're a superstar. Right. Like it was a big deal back then, when you come out, you get all these offers to do things and all this money. And that's how I was able, because my company crashed, I was able to jump into a career in reporting and journalism, because I had the degree and a TV station was offering me a job. And it's like, why would I not move to Los Angeles and do that? Let's go.
Right.
And so I started my news career in Market 2 in Los Angeles. And then as I moved back east to be closer to home, I later found out what a big deal it is. Everybody I was working with are clawing their way up to Market 40 so they can get in Market 35. And they go their whole lives just climbing this ladder. And I started in number 2. I was so fortunate. I've really learned to live in gratitude. But back in that day, it was ridiculously crazy. There was all these opportunities, all this stuff.
Wonderful.
Right.
So I got and then when you $5,000 a pop to go to a fucking amusement park. I spent an entire summer doing nothing but going to amusement parks, riding rides for free, escorted to the front of the line, and got paid $5,000 for a couple hours a day to be the Survivor guy at the amusement park.
I would do that for free.
I would do that for free too. I look back on that. I was like, where is all that money? I made so much money. Where did it go?
Yeah.
Well, I think on my bucket list of things I would like to do one day is one of those rides. I've never done it.
A roller coaster.
A roller coaster. Yeah, I've never done a roller coaster.
You got to do that. Find a scary one. Do it.
One day, the furthest I've gone is one of those things which goes round and round, and you sit on a mat and you're barely sort of 20 feet in the air. What's that? Is that a Helter Skelter or something? I don't know. I don't know.
There are good amusement parks in England, aren't there?
There are. They bypass me. I spent a lot of my childhood on the Norfolk coast, and there was there are some piers that jut out into the sea, and I was very excited by one because there was a zoo there, but the only animals in the zoo were two rather faded vultures, which did look lovely, But
if you ever come to the States, Tim, let me know, and I will personally drive you to the scariest fucking roller coaster of your life.
That's definitely a date, and I'm hoping to get to the States soon.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to.
You're now on the East Coast. You're no longer in LA.
Yeah. Yes, I am on the East Coast now. Yes, and Americans aren't allowed to travel anywhere right now, so
I know.
You have to come here. I can't go anywhere.
Well, I could probably just do it by sort of some sort of sci-fi thing, I could
teleport you.
I could teleport. Yeah, there we are. Right. And life would be wonderful. And I could sort of work on my American accent, which is useless. Then I could really realize my inner Robin Williams.
I'm going to leave here talking like you. I'm going to be answering the telephone. Good afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. You do it beautifully. We could swap, Jeff. We could swap.
I would love to hear you talk with my accent. Go for it.
So where is your accent from?
North Carolina, Southeast United States. Yeah.
And that's part of the original states, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, but I've lived everywhere. So it's thicker when I'm here because I'm around it. But when I'm not here, it's not as thick. It's like being in TV, I never really developed an anchorman voice because my whole philosophy of what I was doing was connecting to real people. It's like people buy from people. They don't buy from robots. And if I'm going to have really high ratings, you're going to need to relate to me. So I never developed that anchorman thing, but so many people do. And it's just horrible. I see them as a joke right out of the gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but this show already, why do I need to believe you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's also that sort of LA accent, film accent, isn't there? Which I can never quite place. It's quite difficult. And we've got the same thing over here, but it's like a softened version of RP, which I've got. But and we've got a broad range of accents here. You need to come over and I
will. It's on my list. It's definitely on my list.
Yeah, come over and I'll show you around. I take you to Oxford.
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah.
Let it go. My phone's gonna die. Hang on, I gotta plug.
Oh no! Please don't die. Please don't die.
I got it. We're back. I plugged it in.
Plug yourself in.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
you have to tell us, how did you? What happened afterwards? Come on, spill.
Well, not with this. This was Second Chances, and Jeff had 4 episodes, and there was some controversy where.
Well, see, you just told him when I get voted out now. He knows.
No, he knows. But
I will forget.
But the point is, he's not getting number.
I will always think of you as a winner, Jeff. So don't worry.
But he was just an absolute star in Confessionals, and that's why. Because again, it is pretty amazing that you had played twice and gone out pre-merge and pre-jury twice. But because you were such good TV, right, you were recruited again a year and a half later for a season called Game Changers, which was again a bunch of returning players. And do you want to tell the story, Jeff, about your season, or do you want me to lay it out? Do you want to talk about it?
Feel free.
Okay. So Jeff, let me take a step back. So
while you do that, I'm going to go refill some coffee.
Yeah, because he knows what happened. Okay.
Maybe put vodka.
So there's another player named Zeke. Okay.
Yeah.
Who applied for season 33. So again, the season before Game Changers. Okay.
Yes.
Now Zeke is, I was familiar with Zeke, or I became familiar with Zeke very, very quickly when the season was announced, because Zeke was a Harvard student. He was a recent Harvard graduate, and I went to Harvard. So the first thing I did is when he's in the cast, I Googled him, and I figured out within about 30 seconds that he was quite famous at Harvard for being a transgender activist. Right, to the extent that he kind of, commissioned a puff piece, if you will, on the Harvard Crimson about, how amazing it is, to be transgender at Harvard. Okay, great.
Keep going.
So he plays in season 33, and on that show, he is portrayed as a gay man, right? But not as transgender. Now, again, I knew the story because I'd read the Crimson article. And also, he was immediately tagged, I guess, from the premiere. I didn't notice it, but apparently there were scars, on his chest from the breast removal. So people kind of knew. And so we were kind of assuming that, because we know how production works, right, that he's going to come out on the show. Because this, like I said, these are the big TV moments that they adore. And, and on Big Brother, I think we spoke about it when Audrey was here, right, that she was kind of not just encouraged, but told, oh, by the way, you are going to be coming out as transgender on the first night of the show.
Yes.
But with Zeke, it was a little bit different. But Audrey was not, publicly out. I mean, people in her life knew, obviously, but she was not as publicly out, whereas Zeke was. So he plays season 33, and he makes the merge, but doesn't win, doesn't make it to the end. And then he is invited back for season 34. And again, I was always assuming that we were going to have this moment, and especially because, quite frankly, Zeke, I mean, he was fine. He's a decent player. He seems like a lovely human being. But there was nothing in his gameplay or his confessionals, that is like, this guy not only is so amazing, we need to have him back, but we need to have him back the very next season. Survivor has only done this a few times in its entire history because they were just these huge, huge characters. So, and people were kind of saying, people who didn't know the story, right, who hadn't read the piece in the Crimson, were like, why is Zeke coming back? And then I also have to add that, so I did see that piece in the Harvard Crimson, but I think within a few days, that piece had been taken down because Zeke decided, and I heard that this was also in combination with production, that they were able to convince the Harvard Crimson to take that article down off the website. Because Zeke didn't, and I thought at that point it was just because they wanted to preserve the surprise of when he comes out. Okay. It turns out that his argument was that, yes, he was very publicly out when he was in school, but then when he graduated and he moved to New York to work in finance, as he said, it's not a secret, but I just don't go around telling people, right? Because then it's the one thing that everybody knows about you. He just wanted to be Zeke the Survivor player, not Zeke the transgender guy. Okay. Understand all of that. But on the other hand, yes, absolutely. And you also have been outed by production. Like I said, there have been several people who have been in the situation that you have been.
Yes, again, I would say it's not something I've ever hidden. I consider myself fairly out, but I don't think it's an issue I would ever say defines me, or that I would ever actually think I need to talk about a great deal. I think people look at the color of my socks, and if they're too stupid to draw, that they can't draw any then really that's their problem, not my problem. Right. I don't think it's I'm sympathetic to political issues.
Right.
But I don't think it defines me. That's really the issue.
Right. But again, the question, but I continue to believe, like I said, and I'm not saying Zeke was on board with this, but certainly I think production, and we'll talk about this more obviously when Jeff comes back. But so what happened, the short version of what happened is on episode 7, the exact same place in the series that we are, in Australian Outback. Jeff realized that,
which
he was
is
in trouble.
Potentially the slightly boring point in the series.
Right. It's just before the merge. Right. And Jeff realizes that he is going home. Yeah. So Jeff, I was just setting up the whole thing. And we're just saying that, it's episode 7, once again, of Game Changers. That you're probably going home. And you have an idea for how you might be able to save yourself. So this was my question, because again, my version, I wasn't there, but what I had kind of put together was that production wanted Zeke to come out, right? That's why he was cast. That's certainly why he was cast to come back immediately on Game Changers, right? I feel like they wanted that moment. And that you were their means of getting that moment.
I believe so.
So I'm sure that you had said to production, and you even said it in confessional, right? That it was what I don't remember your exact words, but that Zeke, you felt, and his game was being deceptive in the sense that he was, playing with another player named Ozzy and pretending he wasn't. Right.
Everybody's game was deceptive. Every single person out there is lying to somebody else. The whole show is about deception. Oh God, you're going to trigger my ass in a minute. Don't get me talking, Carrie.
Right. Well, like I said, you were in advance. You seem to be okay with talking about this.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
So
I'm not. I'm just,
Yeah. No, but it's so basically. Do you feel like to what extent were you encouraged by production about Zeke being deceptive?
Does Tim know that I outed him?
Well, that's what we're getting to. That's what we're getting to. Right. So he's on his way out of the game, and we do, and we always love it when people fight, right? When they know that their game is probably about to be over, but rather than just shrugging their shoulders and good game, everybody. You decided to fight, and the way that you decided to fight was to say, right, Zeke is not what he appears to be.
No.
There was no decision.
There was no decision to do that. I did not make a conscious decision prior to that tribal council to out Zeke. Zeke was not my target in my initial situation. It's hard. I guess we have to go back. I mean, maybe as I explain, you'll ask me questions of other things, but I knew I was going home. I knew I was on a tribe with a trans man at that point. And that it is what it is. Zeke and I were friends. I was actually really excited to have the opportunity to have something, because I was on a tribe with him and Ty. Like there were 3 LGBT people on one tribe. I don't think that's ever happened. And I was really excited to work with them, but I was the lone man out. It was their alliance of 6, I think. How many? There were 7 of us. So there was an alliance of 6 and then me.
Right.
And I was on my own and we lost the challenge. So I'm going home. And it's clear I'm going home, but I didn't want to go out without a fight. So Zeke made the mistake of telling me that I was going, because I had been working other angles. I have to say, I was very frustrated at the time with the way Survivor portrayed my game, because it was very sort of not present, I think. And I feel like I played the best game of my 3 shots out there. Before then, I was set up. I just got swapped. It was just a chance thing that put me in this situation where I fucked it all up. But up until that point, I was making all the right choices. I was aligned with people on the other side. I knew that we were about to merge. And here I fucking am going home before a merge again. Like this was the 3rd time. The one thing I heard from people before I left was, please make the merge. Just make the merge. So here I am going home the night before the merge, and I'm so upset about it. That was the big thing for me, walking around thinking, my family's going to be embarrassed. How am I going to go back and explain to the world I had 3 shots and still didn't make a jury? Like, because I made the merge in Australia. The jury just was formed a little bit later. If they had done it then the way they do it now, I would have been on the jury then. But I was in this sea of desperation. I had not eaten properly. I hadn't slept properly. Like it was just an ugly mix of everything. And Zeke made the mistake of saying, you're going. And I thought, okay, fine. But when he did, he made the mistake of saying Andrea and Sarah are going to lie to your face and tell you that you're not going home, but you are. So when they did, I immediately went straight to Andrea. It's like, as soon as he says this, I get up. I'm like, okay, you're giving me an out. Like, well, thank you for the roadmap. Let me figure out how to fucking get out of this mess.
Right.
I had probably 3 hours before tribal, 3 or 4 hours maybe, and went to Andrea and tried to get as much information out of her because I wanted to know where she is in the whole thing, because I know you're going to lie to me. I let her lie and sing her song and all that. Then I went to Sarah and I let him know. I let Sarah know, and then that explodes. I don't remember the episode because I saw it once and I'll never go back and watch it again, but I just remember that moment of me stirring it up a little bit and the 2 of them turning on Zeke. I remember that happening. And right at that moment, the edit makes you think they do. They eventually don't, but the edit makes you think in that moment that they're really thinking about it. So you get up to this tribal and the narrative is, this is going to be something about Zeke. to me, in hindsight, that's how I sort of felt about that. But as we're getting closer and I'm realizing there's nothing I can do, I need to go find an idol. It's my last hope. And I spent, I swear to God, 3 hours, if not more, scouring that place. I broke a sweat. I didn't care. The whole time I'm thinking, I've got to stay here tonight. I cannot go. My whole mentality was just go, go, go. And I found out later I was so close to it. I needed to go up a little hill, just a little bit more. And there it was. And I turned around in mid-hill and went the other way. But when I did, I saw Ozzy in the corner staring at me, watching me. I don't know, you haven't met Ozzy yet.
No.
Tim. He comes later. He is a Survivor legend. He's pretty boy and he's great at challenges and everybody loves him. And I actually got to play the game with him and really understood about producer narrative and how they craft stories of what's not real, because this guy has zero game. Like there's nothing there. He's just pretty boy. He was nice, but there's nothing.
He's
there.
also he's also very good physically, but in terms of strategically, not so much.
Not at all. But as I'm going through the hunt for this idol, I see Ozzy staring at me behind a tree, like he's hiding, and he's watching me to see if I find it, so they know if I have it. And I'd go to another place, I'd turn around, and there he would be. And I just turned to him, and I'm like, just fucking come here. Like, don't hide behind trees. Just come here. If I find it, you know I found it. So what? I'm gonna play it anyway. And if I don't find it, then you know I haven't found it. So don't follow me around. Just come here. And when he came up to me, I got his guard down. And I just let him know I'm going. It's okay, whatever. How are you? Who are you? Tell me all about your life. And we're walking through. He completely spilled all the beans. Well, I'm out here in an alliance with Zeke and Andrea. And ding, all the bells went off. I only need 3 of them. There's 6 of them. And the 3 I just found out are in an alliance. That means the other 3 are not. So light bulb, like fireworks are going off. I have found it. This is how I'm going to deal with this tonight. And my whole strategy was to convince those 3 people that they are not in an alliance they think they are. And as soon as you merge, you're the first 3 gone. So let's get rid of him tonight. I've got people over there. We'll connect. And then these 3 will be gone. Like that was my whole thing.
And to a certain extent, it was true, right?
It was absolutely true. And then in that moment, I get a call from the assistant producer. I can't think of his name. Lee, maybe. Super sweet kid. He follows us around, takes notes, reports back. He has a microphone on. So I think the production team is listening to what's happening in this moment. And he says, Jeff, it's time for your walk, which is what they called your confessional. We're going to go for a walk. That way, if you're talking about your confessional on camera, it gets called on camera, you're talking about a walk and not about an interview. So I'm going, he points where I should go. I go down the path to go to the spot. And as I'm walking down the path, I see the set way off in the distance of where they're going to seat me, but I see the producer walking toward me. And so about halfway in the path, she comes up to me and she was, I forget exactly how that conversation started, but I remember having the thought, this is not appropriate because I'm away from people. There are no cameras here. There are no microphones here. There's nobody to watch what I'm saying. There's nobody to watch what you're saying. I remember having that thought, but I remember her saying to me, I think your idea with the Ozzy is a good way to go. But Matt and I want to know how you're going to use the trans thing. And I wasn't. Like it wasn't anything I was going to say. It wasn't anything that I was going to do. We had a whole conversation right there. And then I walked over and she's like, well, let's go talk about it on camera. And I walked over and did my interview. But in that moment, I didn't realize what was actually happening. So I go to my confessional, I sit down and I remember crying. I remember becoming very emotional and questions about Zeke. And my whole thing was about Ozzy. It's all a blur to me. But when I remember looking at her in that interview and saying to her, what I just found out, you've got to give me some time to go work on. Like, don't put me in a boat to take me to tribal right now. Give me some time. I need to talk to Ty, Sarah, and Debbie, because they're not in the alliance and you're not going to fuck me up here. Like I'm going, this is what I'm going to do. And when I got back to camp, she said, okay. When I got back to camp.
So you already knew that Zeke was trans. You had just figured that out when you met him, right?
I figured out Zeke was trans at Ponderosa, 100%. Like, It's an interesting situation because the guy who cut my hair before I went to Survivor, my hairstylist for a period of time, still is occasionally, is trans. And so as I'm getting my hair cut to go to Survivor, we're talking about it. And he's about to go have his top surgery. He's showing me pictures. He's like, they're going to put a tube here. He's explaining the whole thing to me. And I'm like, okay, got it. When we get to Ponderosa, I was very fascinated by Zeke because, like you said, it's very rare for them to have somebody on a season and then immediately invite them back the next season. Right. So when we shoot 2 shows in the summer to air in the fall and the winter. So the show that airs in the fall was Zeke's first season. The show that airs in the spring was this one we're shooting right here, right now. But America has not seen this first season. So when I show up at the hotel to get on the plane to go, there are 2 people I've never seen before. I know that who everybody else is, and I know I'm playing an all-star, but who are you? And it was Zeke and Michaela, and I was fascinated by them. I studied them. I knew everybody else. I don't know you. Let me watch how you walk. Let me watch how you talk. Let me watch how you go up and down these stairs. Are you a challenge beast? Are you a rude bitch to the ticket people? Like, let me just get a sense of who
because
you
you
are.
know that these people are being brought back for some reason, but you don't know what it is. Right.
And
because
I kept thinking also,
you hadn't seen their first season.
Exactly.
No, nobody had. None of us had. So I kept thinking of Russell Hantz, because Russell was on Samoa, and then he immediately came back for Heroes versus Villains, and they're this grand villain. You'll meet Russell too, Tim.
Right.
Hang on.
I'm looking forward to that.
They didn't know who he was, and so they're catering to him and helping him when really he's just devouring them behind their back. I immediately related Zeke and Michaela to those 2 people, to that situation, And he became an object of my study. And I would just watch him and figure. And he took his shirt off at Ponderosa to lay in the sun. And I saw the scars that not 1 week earlier, I had just had a tutorial on, basically, by my trans hairstylist. So it's like, I knew in that moment. That was the moment that I realized 100%. And I remember talking to casting associates and people who were there, because you can't speak to each other in Ponderosa. And sometimes I don't know how everybody else did, but I would throw things out at them to read their body language to see if I was close to something. And, I would talk about Zeke and talk about Michaela and stuff like that. Anyway, you asked me.
Of course,
that's how I knew. So I knew, but and then throughout.
And you're a journalist.
Right, but they also, and this is what I had always suspected, but you have confirmed, right, that production did ask you, how are you going to use this? Meaning that they were aware of it, and they were not discouraging you from doing it. Let's put it that way.
In my opinion, more than that, because what they did was got inside my little Survivor brain, the one that hadn't slept and and was desperate, like so much desperation. They know everything about you. They just took advantage. She took advantage of me in that moment. I wasn't able to know that's what that was about until therapy, months and months and months later, and realizing, you know what? You're absolutely right. And she tap danced through my head and planted a seed. And like it's very they're very good.
It's very difficult to get these seeds out of your head once they've been put there.
It wasn't something I walked around and thought about, but it was there, waiting for a trigger, waiting for something. It was a wound, waiting for a finger to go into it. Like it was just there. But I didn't go into that tribal with a strategy to out Zeke Smith, thinking that that's going to make me go further. I'm a gay man. I understand, Yes. I mean, Zeke had been talking about trans issues throughout the season. When I was with him, he talked about his dissertation. I think he said some kind of thesis, something he wrote at Harvard, where he talked about transgenderism and the Bible. And it was a fascinating conversation. I was so riveted by what he was saying. He basically was making the argument that Jesus, or God rather, is trans, because he's all, that's a whole story. That's a whole.
I can pick up on this one, by the way.
But the fact that he's having that conversation openly with all of us, when I have this knowledge now that you told me, the people who saw him in his original season already know. He was on a season. He's come out. He's out. He's loud. He's proud. He's on a TV show twice. Why would you come on a show like this twice with a secret like that and think these people aren't going to find some way to use that in some way? this is all hindsight stuff. I wasn't thinking any of this at the time. But anyway, we go into that tribal council, and I remember right before we went in, I was in game mode. I had figured out how I was going to argue that Sarah and Ty and Debbie are not in this alliance, and you guys need to come with me and let's vote out Ozzy. I really had it laid out. I remember standing there like a tennis player, waiting for the volley, or like a boxer just sort of bouncing, waiting to know which way they were going to go. I remember being present for a bit in my body language right before we go to tribal, and I'm rocking back and forth, and I'm telling myself, I'm going to knock the shit out of this. I'm ready. When we went into tribal, Jeff does his whole thing, and I just remember very quickly, he didn't walk around and ask people bullshit questions like he normally does. He immediately came to me. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen. Did somebody ask me a question?
Just said, Car Freak 1 2 3 4 5 said, because I know he didn't intentionally try to do it, he did, it just slipped.
Yes, there was no intention. It's so important. I don't know that I can say it just slipped, because that considers it accidental, and that gives them, production, the out, that they didn't do something here. Right. But anyway, that seed's sitting back there. Jeff reads very quickly in my body that I'm ready to go. And he was like, Varner, I can tell you're just whatever. And I said, can I just go? And I started my whole argument, and it's a blur, but I remember laying it all out there for how these three people, the smartest thing for you to do is come with me and get rid of him, and I'll hook you up on the other side, and we'll get rid of these bitches that aren't even including you now and making you think they are. They're deceiving you, and we're all this. Touched each one of them, you, and you. And I was so proud of myself because I felt like I was making the argument. Debbie speaks up even in the middle of all of it and says, oh, he's good. And when she said that, I thought, okay, I got you. And my focus came to other people. But then Zeke speaks up and says something along the lines of, Jeff is lying. I'm not deceiving anybody. There's nothing going on here. He's telling you there's no deception here. I'm not whatever. And out of my mouth in that moment, there was the trigger. There was the finger in the wound. It just came flying out of my mouth. Then why don't you let these guys know you're trans? Which at the time I thought everybody else in the world knows. All production knows. The only people who don't know are these people right here. And I bet you they have an idea too. Like it didn't dawn on me that I was what I had done. I thought I was calling out a bad Survivor player for his shit, and it took me a minute. Probst told me after the fact, he was like, you scared me because you doubled down. And I don't remember really doubling down, but I remember I didn't feel what had just happened was a bad thing. Not yet. But then it dawns on me. And I mean, I saw Andrea's face. She was crying. I can't believe. And Ty losing his shit. And I was in the middle of a shame circle, and fingers were pointing at me, and how dare you? And I'd had this whole emotional, I'm going to get emotional now thinking about it. I hate you, Karen. Talks a lot. Fuck you. It just was a really ugly moment. And so I lost it. And I remember just being so emotional, and I don't know how long it went on. I just remember getting lectures from Jeff, and you were gay in Australia, but it wasn't in the show, so you were in the closet. And I'm like, I wasn't in the closet, and fuck you. Like, I was so just a mess. And I remember feeling touches on me. Andrea reached out and touched my leg, and I felt Ozzy's hand touch my back. And it was this moment of compassion, and just, it was a beautiful thing. And Zeke forgave me, and he hugged me, and it was both of us were in shock, and it just ended in a really beautiful place. There was a beauty to this story that had come together nicely. The lesson is there. You don't do this to people. The lesson is there. People make mistakes. They shouldn't be crucified just because they made a mistake. We were out of the game for a moment, and it just was gorgeous. So I made peace with it. I remember walking out of there thinking, I was able to make peace with it. It's hard to explain to people at home who don't know, because all they saw was the show's depiction. And I'd like to talk about that in a minute if you'd like. But I remember walking away and walking down this path to the little tent where the doctor's there who weighs you, except there was no doctor, there was nobody there. And I was alone for the first time in 21 days. I was alone after having done all of that. And I remember thinking to myself, what the fuck did I just do? What have I done to him? What have I done to my life? What the fuck? And I had a whole moment alone, and I ripped my microphone off, and I thought, wait a minute, I still have to do my last words. They come back to me and ask for another interview. So I put my microphone back on, and they came to get me and took me and sit me down on this stool after everybody had left. And the producer who fucked with me in the jungle steps up to the microphone and says, so tell me how you feel. And I lost my shit. I remember being so angry and calling her out in that moment on camera. What do you mean, how do I feel? I wish you hadn't have fucked with me like that. I can't remember my exact words, but that was the energy and the place where I was. I get on the boat to go back to Ponderosa. I tell the psychologist everything. She knows everything about everything. I let her know how I feel. I let her know that the producer pulled me in the jungle, and I talked about it freely. I got back to Ponderosa. I'm sitting there and I'm sharing with everybody, this is what happened. And I get emotional there. And I remember Sierra spoke up and said, oh God, what did she say? She had a same story with a similar story. I probably shouldn't say this. This isn't my story to tell. But there were people with my days of outing people are over. There were other stories. And over the years I've heard, over the weeks and months and years, I've heard other stories about this same producer who actually was on a Big Brother show as a producer, interestingly enough. So when you were talking earlier, I was seeing her face.
That's where she learned her skill.
Yep.
Anyway, they all are good like that. They know they're great like that. They know what they're doing. They know how to get you to say something without them telling you to say it. It's hard to explain. You have to kind of go through it and see their tactics and their tricks, but they have learned to walk you around things so that you believe. And I believe that's what went down for me in that moment in that jungle. They were going to get Zeke's story out one way or the other. This is my belief 100%. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm wrong. I'm just saying this is what my gut is based on things I've learned, and where I believe they were intentionally trying to get his story out, and they were doing it through me.
Yep.
Because can you imagine how bad that would have been if Brad had done it? It would have been a completely different story than me and the way it sort of happened. But anyway, the psychologist saw I was in a place, man. It was awful. She separated me from everybody else. I think I spoke suicide in front of her. They took me to another place. Sorry. They took me to another place. They separated me from everybody. And I spent several days there with just me in this beautiful hotel and the therapist. And we did exercises and talked. And she showed me YouTube videos of Brene Brown and all of her shame TED Talks, and helped me to understand that what I was going to deal with in the coming weeks was shame. Your topic is shame. Go. And I bought books. I got all kinds of stuff. They eventually let me join the pre-jury group on their trip around the world or wherever we went. And that was great because I was with Tony and Caleb and Sandra and Malcolm and Sierra, and they were all so just loving and supportive of me.
That's good to hear, because I was wondering what happened after and how the rest of the cast reacted. So it sounds like
great.
People were good.
Yeah, I'll keep going. You tell me what questions you have, because I'll just keep running my mouth.
Right. Well, so one question is, one of the things that, Probst said to you was like, you've not only outed him to, the tribe, but, to millions of people. And of course, that begs the question, right? That you outed him to 30 or 50 people, whoever was around, and then production had to make the decision.
Absolutely.
Right. And my understanding is that they did that in consultation with Zeke. Now, query, if Zeke had said no, would they have really respected that? Who knows, right? But he decided / was told.
Why would they respect what Zeke says? They'd already made their decision, and they used you as a pawn to achieve that.
Yeah.
This was written before you even went on the show, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I think we do have to say, and I think that you would completely agree with this, that you shouldn't have done it. If you had known what the facts
100%.
were, you absolutely would not have done it. And you
Absolutely
did it. You were
not.
starving and not sleeping. No, because this is something that I think people do have to get. Right.
And
You immediately, when you were in tribal, you immediately kind of got, and you got it, it seemed like you got it in stages, right? But it kind of kept hitting you what you had done. But you immediately knew.
From the very beginning, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never backed off of it, and I've never blamed production. Like, I've never done that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never told people what I've told you here today. Like the press the day after, I could have said everything I just said to you and really caused some trouble. I probably could have sued. I've had people on the inside say, why didn't you sue that? You had a lawsuit, whatever. That's not who I am. It's not whatever. But I forgot what you said. Sorry.
No,
it's just asking about
you got me emotional on this one.
Jeff, I've spent the last 6 or 7 months discovering this world, and it seems to me that it's controlled by magicians who are extraordinarily adept and skilled at palming cards that you have no choice but to take.
And then taking that story and editing it in a way that tells a completely different story.
It tells the story they want to tell. You are simply you are the stream down which those little fish float. You are not in charge, and this is the difficulty that I think people have. They see you on television and they think you are responsible for what you are doing. You are not responsible, I'm afraid. You have ceded that responsibility to production. Now, there is an area, and I'm really relieved to hear what you say, about owning this. But you only own an element of this. You were manipulated, and it's so clear. And there are people behind the scenes, these devils who know exactly what they're doing. More than that, they have studied you for months and months. You've already been on the show, so they know exactly who you are, and they've got you back again. And you're there for one purpose, I'm afraid.
Right, and especially in your case. So again, we didn't go into this in detail, but again, on both of his previous seasons, again, Jeff was the one who would be very snarky and be very open and maybe say things that other people might not have said. So I think that they probably knew, even from what you did on Second Chances, that you are. I don't want to call it suggestible. But where, what I'm saying, that, certain people would just are too buttoned up, too careful, right? Always think 3 times before they speak. They were not going to do this, right? They need somebody who.
Karen, we're all suggestible.
Of course.
It's part of the vulnerability of being in media. I remember meeting a very well-known magician when he was still at university. And we're in one of my students' rooms, and he tried hypnotizing me, and then decided I wasn't very good at it. And then he turned to the person who was next to me and said, "I'm going to count back down from 10." Before he'd even got to 5, the person was away, and was completely at his mercy. Wow. And this is somebody who really hadn't got his skills honed. He's now sort of so good.
Yeah.
And I think television producers are like that. And I was certainly aware of having cards palmed off on me, but I knew what was happening, and I played.
It's more than just the producers too. Like there are so many different players.
The whole environment.
You
Jeff.
got casting people that are just as adept, and you've got
they've already cast you. They've cast you with psychiatrists.
You got a therapist who was wonderful. I don't ever want to
I was going to say it does sound like. I was going to say they did take good care. Do you feel like after it happened, it seemed that they did give you support?
They did give me support. They paid for therapy, and therapy's not cheap. And I went once a week, sometimes twice a week for a year. So they really did they did try to help. And I remember the therapist would say to me, "There's so much that can I go back a little bit?"
Please,
because I don't want to. It's hard to say things without putting it into context. But when when I got home, you know, I was absolute wreck. There's a whole lot that went on when I got home, but my whole focus was Zeke. I wrote him a letter at Ponderosa so that when he got voted out, he got it. And I gave him my email address, and I'm like, when you're ready to talk, reach out. And I remember I was camping one weekend, and I opened up my email, and it was for Zeke. And he was like, let's do this. So we emailed a little bit, then we had a phone conversation, and hearing his voice was very settling and just calming. And it was such a beautiful conversation. It's like he was so smart about it and promised he wouldn't have any vitriol toward me, and that we were both victims because other people found out that the network or somebody was trying to tell people about him before we all left and went out there. And then once it happened, you know, I remember Zeke saying to me, and this is a quote, Varner, we're both victims here.
Yeah.
And he told me that he was writing a letter or had written a letter to production and everybody, calling them out on it like he was angry. And we spoke for months, healing. It was just a beautiful thing. And the therapist was telling me, when this show airs, you know, it's going to be all that compassion at the end. It's going to be ugly for a minute, but then it's going to be this really beautiful story. And I was really relying on that. But then all of a sudden, in the middle of it, right before the show started to air, Zeke stopped talking to me, and he stopped returning phone calls and messages, and something had changed. And when the show aired, it eliminated moments in that tribal. It eliminated Jeff Probst saying, Varner, you don't have an ugly bone in your body. I've known you 20 years. Why did they take that out? What was the purpose of taking that out other than to make me look bad?
Yeah,
right.
They took out the question that Zeke said that sparked me to turn around to him and say, oh, really? They took that out. So my outing him was completely out of context. They didn't put in any of the compassion at the end. They just kicked me out, and it was like, boom. And I didn't understand why somebody I'd known for 20 years would treat me like that. I really had a hard time with that. But then I found out that the production got involved with Zeke and convinced him that I was one of the people who came in with all this knowledge and that I had this thing. And I found out who the girl was, Caitlin Moore. I'll say her name. I don't give a fuck. I loved her, and I still do. But she convinced Zeke, to her own admission to me, that she was mad because apparently the producer who did that to me got fired or either quit over it. Whatever reason, she left the show, and this Caitlin was her best friend. So I was going to pay, is kind of what I read out of that. I confronted her at our finale, and she admitted it. She was like, I was very upset about Drina and what you did there with that and all that. And she apologized. But at that point, it was way too late. I think I found out that they let Zeke, with the cooperation of GLAAD, the organization, have control over that. And so that opened up a whole nother can of trauma for me, because here I am as an LGBT person, and the GLAAD organization that works on, that promotes healthy treatment of gay and lesbian people on television and in the media, was throwing my ass under the bus.
Yeah.
When I reacted to the network, I'm like, why did y'all edit it that way? I was told GLAAD had the heavy hand. That's a quote given to me by somebody on the inside. And so that's opened my eyes to these organizations. You know, you had an opportunity here to really do something beautiful for the LGBTQ community. And instead you did something beautiful for trans people and trashed a gay man while you're doing it. And it wasn't even fair. Like, that shit wasn't even accurate. And then later, they probably gave Survivor an award for it. So basically, I'm like, you're giving them the media award for all of this wonderful, fair and accurate treatment of something that wasn't even fair and accurate. And you helped fucking produce. You just gave yourself an award for trashing a gay man. You know, like, they missed the boat totally. My eyes are open to a whole lot.
They certainly...
But Zeke comes out, goes in the press, calls me a bigot, and like everything that happened afterwards was a result of production getting involved and immediately separating us so that we did not heal together.
So did you ever speak to Zeke?
That's my belief.
Again?
Say it again?
Did you ever speak to him again?
I tried to, and he wouldn't. I tried to do it with the therapist on the phone with us, and he wouldn't do it. Then right before the finale, if you're going to have a speaking role of any sort in the live reunion, Jeff Probst will call you on the phone and have a conversation with you. So he has kind of an idea what you're going to talk about and how you're going to say it. And I got that call from the therapist saying, you and Zeke are going to be treated in here. So I think it's best that we have a phone call together just so we can work that out. And when I got on the phone with him, with the therapist there, I was straightforward. I told it like it was. I called him out on the bullshit. I was like, you did this, you did that, you did that. And here you are gallivanting around on red carpets and going to this award show and eating up all this attention. And look at me and look at me. And you're helping a company celebrate you while trashing another gay person that you know, based on our conversation, is a victim too. Those are your words. Like, he got so irate and he couldn't argue back with me. He apologized for calling me a bigot in the press because he knows that's not who I was. But it wasn't like I was calling to attack him. You know, it was that here's where we were. Here's where we are today. Here's what you just said about me in the press. Here's some truth. Let's talk about this. And he ran off the phone. He hung the phone up and we didn't talk to each other again until on live television at the finale. And we didn't speak to each other. But, you know, my whole thing from the very beginning has been his protection. Once I realized what I was doing, I realized later down the road, that's so dangerous. Like, you are putting his life in danger, and outing a trans person can get them killed, and you just don't do it. And here I am, the example of why you should never do that. And I focused on that. And I have been that positive energy that way, because that's the healthiest way I know of to do it. And privately, I have been traumatized, really. I feel abused by these people in this whole situation. And then, you know, I went through a whole period where I didn't sleep and I started having nightmares. This was after I thought I had shaken it. Therapy was gone. I started having nightmares. I would go out to a restaurant and the waitress would put the cup down on the table and I would like jump. I was in this alerted position constantly of danger around me and who could come up to me. And it wasn't until later that all of that was diagnosed as PTSD from the entire situation. And I got on the right healing track. I got the right medication. I got going. So everything changed. But I still have triggers that will hit me. And it's based off of bullshit. It's not really based off on me making a mistake like that. It's based off of the way production treated me. It's based off the way other people treated me and the death threats I got, all because of an edit. I honestly believe if most people knew what really was going down there, they wouldn't have come at me like that.
Absolutely.
And so the fact that I was having to deal with that was so hurtful. And, you know, so I really feel abused by Jeff Probst, quite frankly. And the more people I've talked to and the more I've learned after, you know, it was an effort. The network and those guys were, from what I understand, I believe, I'm trusting what I'm hearing, that they were hoping his story gets out there. There's been a lot of confirmation for me over the last several years. I've spoken to people on the inside. I've spoken to people involved.
Again, I'm not on the inside, whatever, but I've been watching the show a long time. And basically, I kind of predicted this once I saw, you know, and like I said, I figured out who Zeke was very quickly. I knew that he was going to come out at some point. That's why he came back. And again, so I did not have that confirmation that production kind of egged you on or, you know, put that thought in your head, but I just always kind of assumed it. And, you know, I will say, and I made that case for you, you know, in some fan forums, and I got a lot of hate for it.
I appreciate that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course you did. They were conditioned to believe something else.
Right.
Absolutely.
And look, so my thing is, you know, and again, I have not been on one of these shows, so I kind of look at it in two ways. And on the first hand, you know, I do feel very strongly, you know, you shouldn't have done it. It could have led to some bad stuff. But on the other hand, like I said, and the fact that they have kind of dropped you like a hot potato. And then again, like you have said, Zeke has gotten a lot of opportunities that I would say maybe he wouldn't have gotten if he hadn't been outed. And again, query the word of outed, because this is the other thing. If Zeke was truly never out, I would probably feel differently about this. But he was so publicly out when he was in school, which was, by the way, like 4 or 5 years before, not 30 years before, right? So once you are, you know, a campus celebrity, and so this is something, you're both gay men, I am straight, so I shouldn't ask this, but once you, in my mind, once you are out, right? Once you, as an adult, you have made the decision to be out, then you're out, right? You can't in yourself. I mean, or you can, right? But
I don't know if I agree 100% with that, because I think it's such a hard thing to do for a lot of different, some people, for me, it was very easy. For a lot of people, it's super easy. For some people, it's impossible and dangerous, really. So you want to, and you test it and you put it out there and you realize it's not the thing I should be doing right now. This is not good. So you pull it back. You don't, deny it. You just don't put it back out there. That's not really inning yourself, but maybe to the person you did, but it's more of a protection thing. I think when you out yourself in the press, it's a very different thing, because you're out there. You can't unring that bell. You're out there. So when I got back and I read,
right, and then the Harvard Crimson took the article down, and that, and like I said, I went ballistic on that, and friends and I, we were calling the Crimson, and I even wrote a piece that they wouldn't publish. But the point is, there were people, and they were not, like I said, the majority was just, Zeke is the victim and Varner's the bad guy. But I was just feeling like this is a much, much more complicated story.
So much more. So much, much more.
But it would have only taken a journalist to do some digging for that story to come out anyway. So
like I said, no, it had come out. That's what I'm saying. Production had convinced, CBS had convinced the Harvard Crimson, which kind of, it's a campus newspaper, but it's kind of a highbrow campus newspaper. And it is a newspaper that, if you're in Cambridge, they sell it on all the newsstands next to the Boston Globe, right? It's, quote unquote, a real newspaper. Right, but so you're a member of the press, right? Once you post something, in my mind, unless it's inaccurate, you don't take it down.
You post a correction, right? You post a correction. Journalism 101, right?
Right, but you don't take it down.
So there were a lot of people that were working in concert with one another to, lower the temperature and to get the story down. So it's just my gut in watching this stuff go on is that effort was happening. And here I am. There's nothing I can do other than, I can't defend myself. It's defenseless what I did. It's horrible. And I can only admit that. And I made sure that was my number one focus. No matter where I was in the press, no matter what happened, no matter what I did. And still to this day, I own that. But the whole other stuff that was going on that nobody knows about is just horrific. There's so much more we haven't talked about here.
It's just that you've got, you know how production can manipulate you during the show. They manipulate the show. That's called editing. Why are they going to stop doing that outside the show or before the show? That's the skill set these people have got.
There was even
like the story of the scorpion and the frog crossing the river. Why are we surprised that the scorpion kills the frog? That's what it does.
Right.
Now, the one question that I do have to ask, because people are, this was some of the things that people have said. I've even heard people say they're fine with all of this, but then you wrote a book. No?
I didn't write a book. No, ma'am.
Okay. So you did not. Okay. So then I'm wrong about that, because that is the one thing I think people feel like the proper thing would have been to kind of bow out and let the focus be on Zeke, which is what you did. I mean, you did that in your exit.
There was a moment in the reunion finale. I was offered a book deal, and I did mention that in the finale, but I never took it up. I never went with it. I did write. I've written a lot. I've actually turned a lot of my experiences into a novel that I'm working on right now. That's has nothing to do with anything. But I did not write a book. I have not written a book. I've not.
But I was right. But I do remember that idea that you were going to. Right.
Yes. In fact, I have done a lot of traveling and speaking to groups, sharing my story.
Oh, I know. Like I said, you've done all of that.
I've been to abused women's shelters and spoken to women about finding their strength. I've been to job fairs and talked to groups of women starting over about how you can reinvent yourself by improving who you are as a person. And I've talked to kids. I've spoken at high schools, civic groups. I've taken my story on the road to help people understand what I did, you should not do. And the shame you feel for whatever it is you did, you can come through that. And let me be the example for that as best I can.
And that's why you're here, because I've done, criminal defense work. In a former life, I was a lawyer. And that's my thing, is that, I may have a kind of less sanguine view a little bit than you do, but, And now I'm going to do what you did before, and I'm going to completely forget my butt. Like I said, I have not slept.
Right.
Yeah, there was my big
I'm
moment,
thinking
and
of the
I just
word
completely lost it. No,
Like
but
she said,
but
sanguine. That's you don't hear that word much.
yeah, lawyer
Come
words.
to my world, Jeff. It's there
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
But yes, Karen, you were
But
saying.
but this is right. But this is my point is that my feeling, and I've defended people who have done things, much worse than what you did, and they did what they did, and I don't, I can on the one hand condemn what they did, and on the other hand feel that everybody in the world is more than the worst day of their lives.
Absolutely.
Right.
100%. We are not our life's biggest mistake.
But most of us don't have this sort of pressure on us from outside, which has already been scripted. This is the issue. We started this show by you were very kind to production, Jeff, and you said that you didn't think at this stage things were being scripted. You didn't think things were being participants were being manipulated so much. I would beg to differ. I would say that this has been the issue from the very beginning.
It's a lesson that I learned the hard way, and it took me a long time to learn.
And I think
I'm absolutely there.
Right the way back in Borneo, I keep seeing the hand of production. It's impossible for me not to see it. It's as if it's a drama which has been written before you even got cast. And I think you come across. I don't want to sound patronizing or anything like this, but you come across as so extraordinarily vulnerable and slightly innocent, very, very moderately naive, but extraordinarily eloquent and impulsive.
Well, yeah,
you're right. You're right.
I appreciate
that. I'm afraid, Jeff, and you put yourself in a position where you were exploited in an appalling way. Yes, I cannot condone what you did,
right?
But I can understand how it happened.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
If you were in the room now and we weren't under social social distancing, you would definitely have a hug.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that is exactly the point I wanted to make. Is like I said, that particular action. Yeah, I wish you hadn't done it. I'm sure you also wish that you hadn't done it. But
I've been clear.
But it does not define you.
Right.
I've
grown through that. I've grown through it.
I think again. Sorry, the show is probably. I'm horrified that the show broadcast that. I'm horrified by the way you described the edit that they gave you. I'm horrified by all of this. By all of this, probably much more than I'm horrified by your act in the first place. And it doesn't diminish the act, but it's.
It's difficult too because the show's so popular, So I see people constantly loving it, and praising tropes and praising producers, and there's all this show-friendly press, and it's like the real reporters don't really get in there. They don't let them in there to actually see. And people at work I've had to tell people, you are celebrating my abuser to my face. Stop it. And it's like, I feel like I was abused. I have suffered emotionally through a whole bunch of shit in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear people around me celebrating the people who did that to me. So, and I try to stay away. I don't watch it. I don't get anywhere near it. And then people will tell me things and I'll get involved and I'll watch a little something. And then, a couple of seasons after me, the Dan Spilo, Kelly Kim thing was the exact same fucking thing, in my opinion, that they did with Zeke and I. And it just was so hard to watch. I was triggered. I was fighting with everybody. I was doing my best to take up for Dan because I don't know him, but I know what he's going through. And until that moment when they threw him under the bus with the show, nobody had gone through what the two of us had done. And I started regretting. It's like, why didn't I come public with all this so much sooner? Maybe this wouldn't have happened to you. I talked to him on the phone. I got his whole story. I talked to people around him. Like I knew they were doing the same thing to him that they did to me. And it just broke my heart. That was a really difficult season to walk through. That's going to come a few seasons after this bomb, Tim. You'll see.
Yeah, this is Elaine's season, Tim. So like we've alluded to this before, but yeah, there was a guy on that season.
You wouldn't let her explain.
Right. But it was,
now I understand.
And it was the same thing. Was Dan too touchy? Quite, I'm going to even just say yes.
Absolutely.
Right. If,
yes,
Kelly,
absolutely.
If Kelly says don't touch me, then don't touch me. But it's not an accident that they put the woman who hates to be touched on the same tribe with the guy who has 8 hands.
No.
Right?
And it's not like I don't want to get all of it, but he's not Harvey Weinstein either. You know what I mean? Like it's just a guy who's a little too huggy. You hug a little too longer, you touch people's hair. It's not like you're standing there grabbing vaginas and flicking titty nipples and shit. You're in Survivor. I can't tell you how many boobs I've grabbed throwing somebody over a challenge thing. And to think that I could be labeled in television as a sexual predator because of something like that is horrific. Yes. It's horrible. So anyway, I was very, very, very vocal when that hit the air. I actually made Fox News, from what I understand.
Wow. I missed that. Yeah, but that's what, so when I asked Jeff a couple of weeks ago if he was interested in, and I was just assuming you were going to say no. And I think also when I approached you it could just be about Australian Outback, but I felt that Tim should hear this story because Tim has heard, like I said, but this is probably the worst story that we have discussed in terms of what being on the show can do to people.
I'm
very, very glad that you're here. And I know that, this is emotional.
It is. And I learn as I go whether I'm ready or not. I feel like I'm ready. Somebody will ask a question, I'll start to answer it. I'm like, I'm not ready.
I hope we haven't pushed you too far this time.
No, actually I feel lighter because I've never said that out loud publicly. I've never talked about the producer involvement publicly before. And I feel lighter having put that out there. Maybe that's what I needed as part of my healing. I don't know.
I can tell you, Jeff, that you once you started telling the story, I knew there was production involvement, I'm afraid. And I'm so pleased you told us. Also, I would say I've talked to so many people in so many different shows over the last 6 or 8 months. And I've heard this sort of story a few times. And it's always painful to hear. I don't know how you get over it. I don't know how you deal with it. But the bottom line is you were manipulated. Just never leave that alone.
I've learned that I can get past it, but the very first thing that you have to do is forgive yourself. Because if you don't do that, nothing else is going to make any sense along the way. And I think in taking ownership and being responsible for my actions, having accountability for myself, and also for embracing it. Like, remember when the 500th episode thing went around and all the Survivor put little videos up of their favorite episode in the 500th episode? I didn't say exactly which one was mine, but I said, my favorite episode is yet to be aired. And I was talking about this one. And that was me trying to push myself through to be happy about the new me as a result of that experience. Being able to grow and change and learn and be a better human. And while other people are like, my favorite thing is when I won the food. And, my favorite thing is when I became an elevated human being from a huge mistake and was able to help educate the world on what you shouldn't do. And I just, by embracing it that way and believing it that way, which pisses Zeke off, I have to say. He does not like that at all. But that's how I have to get through this. I have to live with this. This is not, for everybody else, this is over. But for me, it's my life.
Zeke was as manipulated by production as you were. I would love to meet Zeke, but
he's nice. He's a nice guy.
You've had such a tough deal, and
we both have.
I'm so sorry for the purposes of entertainment. This is the irony of it all. And as I say,
let's be clear. This is for the purposes of making money.
Making money without
relevance. Yes. Yeah. No, this is there is greed and deceit behind a lot of this stuff.
This is the only part of the media. This is the only part of the media world which is unregulated, and it's global.
Right.
And there's no Let's throw a few psychiatrists at these people. That is all. That's all that's offered, and it's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. We're back sort of partly to the days of 1950s, 1930s Hollywood. I think we go back further to the days where people are dying in an arena for other people's entertainment, and it's vicious. And I think at its heart, reality TV fulfills an enormously positive hole. It fills an enormously positive hole, and it does a good thing. It brings ordinary people into the media. But
the fact
so easily exploited.
Right. And the fact, like I said, so Sarah, so one of the other people in that season is a police officer, right, in the Midwest. She's very conservative herself. She said she grew up, very conservative area. She just never have a lot of exposure, not only to trans people, but even just, gay people in general. And she spoke on the episode about like how important it was for her, the fact that she actually met somebody and he's just Zeke, right? He's just the person.
100%.
So I do feel like, and that's why, because people have said like, if all of these horrible things are true, right? Why do you still watch? Right. And look, I've had some questions. I've asked myself more than once, with Trump, because I was a big fan of The Apprentice. Right now, I mean, I was kind of laughing at Trump through it because I grew up in New Jersey and I knew Trump, back from the 70s and the 80s. He was a joke then. But yes, reality TV has done horrible, horrible things to people, but it has already also done so much good, right? By allowing people to have these conversations.
Right.
Yes, but when you come to Trump, I'm afraid, I know it's not my country, but Trump manages the camera probably better than almost any other politician. Oh, and that's because he comes from that world. The only person I compare him with is Ronald Reagan, who also managed the camera. And they own the medium. It doesn't matter
what. And you can see with Trump, that skill, that adeptness has really sucked in millions of people. Like you can see the manipulation happen and how easy it is for people.
In British politics, one of the greatest communicators is Nigel Farage. We had a spat. I think
this is the real reason I think that Tim was tapped to be on the circle. You want to tell Jeff that?
Yes, tell me.
No question about it. That's what they wanted. Once they met me, they realized I was an ex-monk, and they thought that was a nice thing to spin as well.
You're an ex-monk?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Tim is a very
professor,
I can't wait to learn more about
all this. They thought it was endless, which of course it is. But press a button and I will go. But they want television, and the media in general wants a story, and if you don't give them the story, they'll create one. And they've got plenty of stories lying there. So if you're big enough to dominate their storytelling, you might survive. If by any chance you give them a gap, I'm afraid they'll present a story for you, and you will find yourself telling their story. I think you found yourself telling their story, Jeff. And a lot of people have been hurt, and I'm really, really sorry.
Yeah, like I said, I kind of watched this whole thing as like a slow motion train wreck. Because, like I said, I knew Zeke's story, immediately. And then when he came back for Game Changers, and it was clear that you were not, because I think I was following you. Actually, I didn't wear it today because it's fallen apart, but I had my Midlife Quest t-shirt.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah.
Oh, so many people bought that. I couldn't remember the name. Didn't ring.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying we've talked.
That.
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times. Yeah, so
I love that.
Right. So and then it was clear that something happened and you were not that excited. I figure like, oh, he just goes out pre-merge again, right? And then I think maybe about a week or two before the episode aired, I started hearing stuff, and I said, oh no, I just had a feeling. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. But I had a feeling what was going to happen. And you played right into their hands. Like, not that I blame you. But like I said, I watched this entire thing like over a period of 6 months, like a slow motion train wreck, because that's kind of what it was. Like I said, you take the survivor player, like I said, who is known for being impulsive, and it was fun in Second Chances, and then it wasn't as much fun in Game Changers, but they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew who to get to, right? They knew who would do the dirty work, and they were right, unfortunately.
Yeah. I just lost you in my right ear.
Wow.
No.
So again, the chat has been very, very supportive, I want to say, because I was kind of concerned about what was going to happen. If people were going to come here and not be kind and respectful. Again, people are totally allowed. Right? If you disagreeing with me is fine, right? Because I'm sure I'm going to get crap about doing this, right? But just as long as people are respectful.
Why would you get crap about doing
No. It's the right thing to do, Karen.
I agree. That's why I did it. But, some people say you should just go, crawl under a rock and they never want to hear from you again. And I don't think that's not just for you as a person, but again, like you lose.
And I can say categorically, Jeff, I hope that we are now very firm friends. And
yes, please. I can't wait to have a conversation with you.
Yeah,
I have no idea who you are, but you come across fascinating. An ex-monk, my God. And I want to go look at your fight with Faraj. Are you? Is that online somewhere?
It's online. Unfortunately, the television bit disappeared because I did an imitation on TV because he came out with the line sort of, well, it's just a joke. He was defending racism, and
right. That was the issue. Again, I don't want to, but my understanding is right that he said something racist. That he said
no, he didn't at all. There was this extraordinary man who walks around in a kilt, also gay, who was on a radio show, and before the radio show, I think actually on mic.
Lost him.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I can hear you through my phones.
Except the only thing when we play this back, though, what tends to happen is we maybe start getting some horrible feedback.
It's fine.
Really?
Yeah, trust me.
I've had feedback all my life.
So
it's fine.
So yeah, so just
it won't affect me.
So
there's nothing. So none of that stuff has anything to do with me. I look at it because one of the great lessons about shame that I've learned through all of this is that we all have it, and it's our shame based on who we are and what we've gone through that causes us to react in certain ways. So when someone fires off at me like that, when you have a life that's full of shame, it really it's trapped in your body and has nowhere to go but out. And that's how it works itself out. So this situation triggered shame in a lot of people, and they unload that on me, and it's fine. I understand it. I don't take anything personally. I forgive them because I know why they're doing it, and it's absolutely fine. But
I think it didn't trigger very much shame in the Survivor production. And the wonderful thing about shame is it gives you an opportunity to actually completely turn around and see life from a different point of view. And that goes all the way back to the 4th century BC. It goes back to Plato. And when you come out of the cave, you turn round completely and you see another world.
Absolutely.
And it's liberating.
It changes the way you think, and if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
So when you come through that, the antidote to shame is empathy. So when you feel shame, be empathetic for somebody and it melts away a little bit. And because I have become so empathetic in a lot of ways, that's changed me as a human. Like, I can't watch reality TV anymore. I used to love The Housewives. I'll watch Big Brother because I know people who work on that show and who are responsible, and I support them. But I don't watch reality TV anymore, really. Yeah. And I'm a different human. I'm a better human. I'm a nicer human. I'm a smarter, more compassionate human. My career's taking off. My relationships are great. Like, the fact that I've worked through my life's shame is only at the result of this show. And that's a beautiful thing. So I have been able to embrace the beauty of this very ugly situation. And I'm not going to be offended or set aside in any way by anybody's hate and anger. I forgive them. It's okay.
Well, the moment we met, I thought you came across as a vulnerable and very sweet man, and you haven't disappointed me at all. And I know nothing about this story. really. And Karen had not prepared me. Karen had not prepared me about who was coming on the show, let alone the fact that you brought this extraordinary story, which goes to the heart of so many of the things that I find disturbing about reality TV. I should also add, the only reality TV I watch is the stuff that Karen makes me watch, and I am fascinated by it. But you're not going to find me on the sofa of an evening switching on Big Brother or any of these programs. And I will be I'd be very cautious about watching any reality shows that might be produced that I might have been involved in the past. I will be very cautious about it. I will be very happy to endorse these shows when I think they're safe. At the moment, I don't think they're safe.
I agree. And I love the work you're doing.
That message needs to get out. And it's not about individual production companies, but it's about the global genre, which is unregulated. It needs to be regulated for the participants and for the producers. Otherwise we end up with just more and more misery. And it's unnecessary for entertainment. Why?
Right. I just hope that people understand that what they see is not always 100%, and the people that they are making these judgment calls about as humans is not fair, because you're not seeing them as a human. You're seeing them in a moment of, whatever state they're in at that time, and you can take, if you had a camera on somebody 24 hours a day, and you decided to take every little ugly moment of that 24-hour period out and put it together, you can make that human look like a horrible beast.
Yes, you can.
And it's just
the other thing is, Jeff,
that, giving people space and room to make their fuck ups, it's so important. And I think people don't care about that stuff so much.
Jeff, your story needs to be told, because it's an important story on so many levels. It's important, and I hope this little podcast sort of liberates you a little bit more.
It does. It does. It does. It's like I just have always said it. I can't talk about my real experience 100% because it takes the story off of Zeke and onto me, and it's not about me. And I am not a victim. Like all of that. It's been a tightrope to walk, because I don't want to share my story and make it look like I'm absolving myself in some way, because I'm not at all.
Right.
Jeff, if you don't tell your story, then I'm afraid the producers who are the demons behind a lot of this get to do this to other people.
And that's the whole thing with the Dan and Kelly thing. I had a whole moment with that.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know about that yet, but I think I may have to fast forward and find out fast.
Yes, and also just that people have to be aware. And like you said, and I think in the fan community, in the super fan community, right, the people who are listening to podcasts about Survivor, right, they know, right, they're learning, right, that about how the sausage gets made. But you're right, but 98%.
Well, no, they're not.
They're not. I only see the edit.
In some situations, they're learning how the sausage gets made. But there's a lot of podcasts out there. There is a little group of media and press around this show that hides this show's negative.
Oh, yeah.
And they elevate it and promote it. And I'm not going to give names or outlets, but, that stuff is out there. Like when I got back from Fiji, I saw that a certain person had put online what tribes we were in and who was on what group and what your colors were. And the date that was put out is a date before the game even began. None of the players knew about it. So how did you know that?
Right.
Like there's an effort to promote and publicize this stuff in ways that really make things really difficult on people in situations like me and Zeke and Dan and Kelly. It's just, there's a whole other level. There's another game going on.
Oh yeah.
And Hollywood, when I first got out of Survivor, I used to work for E! News Live and TV Guide Network. And for a couple of years, I was on red carpets and did set visits and met actors and sat and watched productions and stuff and talked to different publicists. I was on the other side of the rope for the first time. And I was able, with a journalism background and training, to see this game. It's not journalism at all. Like, this is a whole publicity game. These magazines that are out there, they're out there because there are actors who pay thousands to publicists who have relationships with magazines, who put their people on the cover. And you go in the grocery store and you stand in line and you see all these people and you think, oh, those are the stars of the day. They're on here. They're not. Those are the people who have paid the people to put them in that place. And you're immediately manipulated already right out of the gate. It is Hollywood and entertainment is a complete and total manipulating
right down to
screen,
right down to the rulers of our country.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the difference, is that on a reality show, right, people think it's different, and it's not different. It's still a packaged entertainment product.
Absolutely.
Right? Rather than starting with a script, you start with these archetypes that you know that if you throw them all in together and you poke it in the appropriate places, right, you'll get a show. You'll get a story.
I think it's less simple than that. I think it's simpler than that, Karen. I think reality shows start with a script as well. And then they find the characters who are going to say those lines, because you're put in situations where there's a very small number of things you can say, and there's a very small number of things you can do. And if you're not quite doing what they want, there is an intervention, as we've heard. Yeah, it's a salutary tale.
Yeah. So anything else on this topic, or anything else that you guys wanted to bring up? I think so I feel like this was a good discussion. It's not an easy discussion, especially for you. I really appreciate you so much being here. And like I said, when I asked you, I just kind of, like, it got to a certain age where, like, you just learn, like, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So I just figured I'd ask. And I was pleased even when you responded at all, right? Because most people just ignore me. You said, well, what is this, right? Who is Tim? What are you doing? And yeah, I'm very, very pleased that finally you have been able to tell the story, because it is a story that needs to be told.
And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity and the freedom and, the lack of judgment to do that. Yeah. I didn't sit down here today planning to say or do anything. It just sort of, things happen the way they happen. But you got me emotional more than twice. So
because you were ready. I think that's the thing, because you were ready.
Maybe that's what subconsciously was happening when I opened up your mail and saw. Maybe.
Ready to do this.
No, we'll see. I've learned to meditate and listen to myself. So we'll talk to me a little bit later and figure out what's going on here.
Okay. So let me just do my housekeeping to get out of here. We need 2 minutes to finish this up. So Tim, just tell people where people can find you on social media.
They find me on, oh God, it's all gone out of my brain now. On YouTube, you can find me under Zontul Films Limited, ZONTUL FILMS LTD. On Instagram, it's Professor_Tim_Wilson, and on what's the other thing? Twitter, it's Prof_Tim_Wilson, and and I've also got a blog called Animate-Tim, which refers to my other life as an animator. So
he does so much stuff, Jeff. You have no idea. I
wrote down everything you just said.
Yeah.
Except his YouTube, I couldn't. You spelled that in an accent. I couldn't follow it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's ZONTULFILMS LTD, and Zontul is the name of my partner, his surname, and it's originally an Aramaic or Syriac word, which would mean high mountain. So when Jesus was going up his mountain to be transfigured, he would say, "Come on, lads, let's go to Zontul," and there on the top of the mountain. So yeah, and my partner is from a little village down in the south of Turkey, and all his family were given this name Zontul, which presumably means people from the top of the mountain, which I think is rather charming.
Well, I look forward to reading more about you.
Yeah.
I look forward to having more conversations, Jeff.
Absolutely.
And Jeff, what about you? How can people find you?
Oh, I don't give a shit. They can find me. I don't care. I'm not. You said earlier something. I think you said CBS or the show dropped me like a hot potato. That might be somebody's perspective. For me, I walked away from there, and I was done. So let's. Right. I've dropped that. And I think all the work that I've gone through, it's just helped me realize I don't need likes. I don't need followers. I don't need any of that shit. So if you want to follow me, it's easy. I'm easy to find. But Tim, I'm going to hunt you out.
Oh, no, I'm going to hunt you out too. Don't worry.
Okay.
We're going to be mutual hunters.
Okay,
Yeah. Do you realize this is the first program I've done with Karen where there's not been the slightest hint of innuendo? Though I was highly tempted by your reference to sausages, but no innuendo at all in the entire show. I think that's a first, Karen.
I think it's because it was, kind of a more serious show. Normally we have a little bit more fun.
I've now got you smiling, Jeff.
I have seen my share of survivor penises. We could talk about that because there are some people who are quite remarkable and need to be discussed.
Maybe that will be, that's a great segue into the fact that if you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider becoming a patron of NSFW, where we will look into having this be as a secret, patron perk if they want to listen to. Maybe not. I don't know.
We could do a penis podcast.
Yes, absolutely. So what else is going on Survivor NSFW other than the possibility of a penis podcast? So we have our Big Brother coverage. Last night we spoke to Nicole Anthony, right, from the season. That was a lot of fun. I think that should be up by now. Thursday will be live right after the eviction as usual. And then next week on Monday, we have Rachel Riley. And next Thursday, the 22nd, we are very, very excited to announce that we will have Chicken George.
That's way back.
That is a deep pull. Yeah, but it'll be really, really fun to talk to him because he was on the first All-Star season, and so we'll talk about the differences.
You should talk to Monica Bailey from Big Brother 2, the black girl who lost her.
We had her.
Oh, you did?
She was on a few weeks ago. Yeah.
She's one of my best friends. I find her fascinating.
Yeah, she was. I wasn't on the show, unfortunately. I was out of town, but she was amazing. Yeah. And then on this show next week, Tim and I are going to be joined by Mary Kwiatkowski of the Kowski Cast, and she also covers Survivor and Big Brother for RHAP. So that will be fun and probably a very different kind of show. But in any case, we really hope that you'll all be here. Please stay safe, stay healthy, wash your damn hands, and we hope to see you next week, same time, same channel, noon Eastern, on Survivor NSFW Rewind. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.